may talk about that, right? Something like that, and then I'll go in. But these are conversations that gotta happen, man. Um, hey, everybody! Welcome to Community Roundtable. I am. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of Community Roundtable. I'm here today with Rod Thrive, and we're going to be talking about the 7 Hermetic principles. But before we get into that, there's some social media controversy that we want to touch on real quick.
Yeah, man. I see that you have a city or a particular place in the United States. You have them a little bit perturbed. Like I saw when you initially posted it. I guess did some things throughout the day, came back, and I saw 60 comments. I say, what is going on? Now, I thought that maybe, because, sometimes we might post some stuff and people just ignore us, and sometimes the algorithm doesn't catch, sometimes the algorithm doesn't hit, but it seems like the algorithm loves sensationalism. So if you're saying something that's going to be sensationalized, it's definitely going to make sure it gets the reach, and you're definitely going to get, So anytime that you say anything against the hive mind of our counterparts, it ends up leading to some interesting conversation, especially if it's any in any authenticity and spirit of truth, I'll say. So it's definitely interested what you talked about on how there are no wives or wifeys in the particular area of Newport News and the then thus reaction of said commentary.
All right, so let me dive in on that. First of all, matter of fact, let me go ahead and go to the post real quick. Right, let me go to the post and make sure that I'm reading the post as what it actually says.
Yep.
All right, so the post says, if you a woman from Newport News and really think you wifey material out here, so this is posted by someone named Virgil Ellis.
Okay.
Right. So you know what? I might be able to put it up on the screen. Let me do that. Let me put it up on the screen for everybody to actually see.
Trying to pull it up on my end too.
Yeah, I'm about to put it up on the screen for everybody. That way we can have this. Everybody could be on the same page. They don't want to just talk about it.
And then I'm starting to really understand your approach, because then you posted new podcast I'm thinking about called Argue with Ferdinand. So which means that you are looking forward to smoke, not backwards.
Well, let me clarify that, because I'm not necessarily looking for smoke. I wrote that post because a lot of the times, like, I'm posting a lot of positive content on a regular basis, and then and most people don't comment on it, as you and I were just talking about, right? But then you got a whole bunch of people who they'll wait until I post something that's kind of controversial, and then they got everything to say about it.
Right.
So I'm like, well, if that's what it is, then maybe what I should do is just do a podcast where people can argue with me, because that seemed like what they want to do. Like, I'm looking at the post right now, and like you said, it's got a whole lot of comments, 66 comments.
Which is,
and as y'all can see, let me make this bigger for everybody. As y'all can see, this is a post from Virgil Ellis. All I did was shared it, okay? And Virgil Ellis says, if you a woman from Newport News and really think you wifey material out here, blah, 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 right? You got the little emoji. More than likely, they're telling people to comment if you think you if you wifey material. Well, I personally don't think that the majority of women in America would definitely Newport News. I don't believe that they're wifey material. I don't. I'm looking at certain criteria, right? So there's a lot of people who be like, well, that's your opinion. No, let's look at the vows, right? Let's look at the vows of marriage. Okay. Some women aren't married, okay? And so we can't really be like, all right, well, you ain't a good wife. Well, we don't know. You ain't married. What we can do is we can look at who's practicing to be married, who is putting in the work to be a wife. And that would be based upon the vows.
No. We're waiting for a man to make us a wife.
Thank you.
All the onus are on men to transform us into that. What do you mean, the ones who are practicing for that?
And it's that is a mindset from some of the ladies, not all of them, but there's quite a few ladies who think like that. Like, yeah, I'll when my man shows up and he proposes to me, I'll go ahead and I'll be a wife then. I'll be a wife once I'm married. And you should be displaying those characteristics long before somebody try to put a ring on your finger. Now, if you are married, you're supposed to be actively displaying this on a consistent basis. Well, the most important part in the vows, in my opinion, is for better or for worse. Now, that for me is vague and it's specific,
Mm,
right? For me, right?
mm.
I don't know how everybody else takes that, but that means to me that, like, if one day, when we're 60, 70, 80 years old, my wife can't get her arm moving real good, and the left or the right, it ain't working. I might have to go over there and wipe her ass.
Right.
That's for worse. I
Mm,
don't really want to wipe my wife's ass. I mean, I just will if I have to, you
mm,
know. Now for me, let's say that something was to happen, and let's say prostate cancer,
mm,
just throwing something out there. Well, if my plumbing ain't working the way it's supposed to, she's still supposed to love me.
mm,
We might be still married for another 30 years while I'm not working down there the way I'm supposed to.
mm.
And that's the part of for better or for worse. Well, how many women do you really think have that mentality outside of a marriage right now, and they aspire to be in one? And how many do you think that are in marriages actually have that real mentality? And if you put them to the test, the real test, how many do you think would pass?
Mm. And I'll say this, kudos to you, because Virgil did make a all out statement, which I've used to do when I was younger, but I've refrained from. I'm more, if you see my post, I'll put quotes like most or some, and you said majority, because we do understand that it is not all. We do understand that we
Right.
can speak in such an absolute to say all, and even me, I would not be as audacious to say all. So kudos for you for saying majority. And I put that there just so that we can refer to it, because we know that it's still going to be misconstrued and skipped over by most women, because they're going to just see all, and then they'll start saying not all, but which you attract, and da 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 da.
Thank you.
So,
It's all
there,
kinds of deflection that happens in there, resistance in there.
absolutely. So there is a particular comment or even theme that I've heard repetitively when it came to one of the comments that you had. But before I get into that, I just want to let you continue cooking, just, and then I'll flow off you.
When it comes down to being a great wife, what I think that is, okay, this is my opinion for anybody out there who's listening. I think that's someone who brings care and nurturing, who brings a certain amount of maturity, accountability, responsibility, humility, and sacrifice, a combination of those. Because once you get married, now you and that man are supposed to become one.
Mm,
And y'all are supposed to walk together, taking steps right next to each other. And when he starts slipping, she got him. When she starts slipping, he got her, right? So it's virtues and it's principles that make a wife. Now, at the end of the day, what we also got to look at the reality of, and I think the ladies really need to look at this, is a girlfriend and a wife ain't the same thing.
mm,
So whatever it is you was doing as a girlfriend, that's great. But
mm,
now it's time to elevate,
mm,
because the wife is the pinnacle. And I want to make this very clear to every woman out there who's listening. When I say the wife is the pinnacle position, that is the highest position you could ever take in a man's life. There's no other position that any other person could take that will supersede that person according to the vows. That includes that man's children. So when everything has fell apart and there's somebody who needs something, well, it's supposed to be the wife who gets it first. After that man makes sure he good. Obviously, we always got to take care of ourselves to be able to take care of others. However, that these wives and these women who aspire to be wives, they need to come into the reality point of what that position really is. 'Cause I don't think that the majority of these women truly understand what it means to truly be a wife. I think that there's a lot of women around here who are hard workers, right? I don't want to take that away from any of them. There's a bunch of hard workers around here. There's a bunch of hustlers in Newport News.
Yo,
There's a bunch
and let me add this: women are great hustlers.
of women
Great.
are great hustlers, right? So there's a lot of There's a lot of hustlers. There's a lot of I can get it. I can get my own money. There's a whole lot of that. There's a whole lot of women who are like, listen, I ain't leaving my kids hanging. I take care of my kids even if that man ain't here, right? But are there a lot of women who are prepared or actively walking the lifestyle of a wife? Me personally, I'm sorry, I just don't think so. And it's not Newport News only. I am
Couple
putting
down
this
on it.
on the entire United States of America.
Yeah, your double down after all the outrage was hilarious. When you said, you know what? I shouldn't even said Newport. I should have said that was a double down of the city.
And let me be clear. I want to just say this real quick because I know we're about to land our plane on this topic, right? We're gonna get into what this
Hopefully.
podcast is really about, right? But I want to say this, ladies, please understand that this is not a one-sided thing. This just so happened to be a post about wives. So Ferdinand saw the opportunity to communicate with the wives. Okay. Understand that if y'all put a post in front of me about some of these poo butt ninjas, okay, I got something to say about them too. Okay. Listen, I'm in that conversation a lot of the times where it might not be talking about me, but if you talk about melanated brothers, you talk about my brothers. I'm one of the brothers, so I see what's going on. I've had to deal with some of the nonsense because my wife had children in prior relationships prior to us getting married. So I come into the marriage as a former bachelor, no children. Now I'm raising children and then having to deal with baby daddies at the same time.
Right.
So I see the negativity and the nonsense that's happening. But y'all ladies really need to come to an understanding that if we have a post on social media about the ladies, stop trying to make it about the men. Listen, we have movies, we have TV shows, we have the news, we have all of these different entities that have been blasting that ninjas and men are horrible for decades. What we haven't had is the real conversation about the ladies.
Ever. Yeah, man. Well said. Extremely well said. I am definitely on the same accord as you. And one thing that I wanted to touch on, because we understand that some of our counterparts are masters at deflection, which you just described is whataboutism. When we bring up a point about something in particular, what about the men? Without understanding. And my mentor told me that they do understand. They do understand that for the most part, men have been put on this pedestal, and not to say a pedestal to celebrate, but this pedestal to isolate and to critique for an extremely long time. So the whataboutism kind of falls flat because we already understand what men are. And if you do have daughters, which I do, and I know you do, a lot of times we do warn them. Not a lot of time, most of the time, they're getting warned about men. But we are never being properly warned about the nature of women and some of the things that we can go through under duress. So just to shine back on you, my brother, so I can see your face when I'm kind of not asking this question, but it was a comment under the post where it talked about, and this is a common deflective mechanism that I wanted to address when they said, well, what are you attracting? What are you attracting? Why are you attracting? So here's the thing when it comes to attraction, right? You attract everything. That's like saying, and this is what one of my mentors put it to me, if he's watching, shout out. He's like, that's like saying, Beyonce, someone like Beyonce. He used that for an example. She attracts all type of things, psychopaths, killers, people who are loved, what I mean? So it's not about what are you attracting. So the fact that that's being used when multiple men are coming across the same thing and it's saying, well, what are you attracting? What is the, we're not taking into consideration, how can all men, most men, I'll say, how can most men just all of a sudden be attracting the same thing? What if all there is to attract is this thing and we're just pattern recognition? And on top of that, once again, when we talk about attraction, it's not more so what you attract, because you're going to attract all type of things. You're going to attract people who have goodwill, bad will, especially when you're the center point of attraction for life. You are going to attract. It's more so what are we accepting should be more of the language that they're using, not what are we attracting, because you're going to attract all type of stuff. And then you have to go through a filter to see what this thing is, because everything kind of in a way presents itself as one way. And that's like kind of our empathetic nature projecting projecting on things. Then with time, we have to see what that thing is. Then we're able to properly filter and then choose whether we accept it. So for chastising a man, for coming across multiple instances when women are doing the same thing and say, well, why are you attracting to that? I always find it a little bit disingenuous and a little bit unfair, because we are the center point of attraction to everything, and you're going to attract all type of situations to you, all type of people that come from different walks of life and have different type of things. So just because that you're having a consistent attraction doesn't mean that you're broken or you're attracting a certain thing. So this is just another type of deflectionary tactic that I see some of our brothers fall into, and you're trying to argue a nothing burger, a thing that you can't even launch. Because the truth is, we attract all type of things. The better conversation is acceptance. You know what I mean? What are you accepting, which will allow a more fruitful conversation to be had. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to touch on. I feel like this is something great that we can actually do a whole nother episode on, but it was just funny, the kind of current of events, and that how we see how the people were kind of being triggered by, and we know what people were most of the time. And here's just the crazy thing. Said, I don't want to talk too much, because we're going to end up going down the rabbit hole. But the crazy thing, which I don't understand, is that when it comes to these type of things, you can see the solidarity between men, that men are saying, yes, this is right. And then we can see the denial, I'll say, and deflection, of the women. And I was just speaking to us, to the fellas, when are we going to stop being afraid, especially in our community? I think that I don't want to speak in absolutes, but I've seen other communities, how the men go in communities. I've been to other nations and I've seen the more patriarchal energy. We are a part of subset of men who are extremely afraid of our women. We're extremely afraid to say what we want to say. When they come around, we got to speak low. We got to get off the phone. We can't, you know what I mean? And I don't think that, because I think that we think that it's avoiding conflict, which really it causes more conflict, because then it starts to create a false illusion to women that men don't think this way. So when you see someone like me, Ferdinand, or even a Kevin Samuels say a truth, you know what I mean? Instead of women understand this is how most men think, they think that we're anomalies, when we're just being the mouthpiece to verbalize things that our boys are saying to us behind the scenes, but are afraid for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And as one person say, and I don't want to say the name because I don't want to give him too much clout, but he said, man, these girls don't got hands. What are y'all afraid of? You think they're going to be? You're afraid of a bad attitude. You're afraid of the silent treatment. You know what I'm saying? You're afraid of, maybe cleaning dishes with a little bit extra loud tone. Like, come on, be a man. Be a man. You know what I mean? And once again, state what you are, state your boundaries, state what the problem is. That's the only way that is going to get fixed. If only few people are saying what the problem is, and then your girl come home and ask you, I don't know what them brother Kaya, who's Kaya? I never seen her before. Is that because you're afraid? You know what I mean? Of a little, mind manipulation tactics that they use, and you're trying to avoid it. Exactly. No, man. Yeah, so once again, shout out to the brothers who did support, but there should be way more brothers. Y'all see the post that Ferdinand got, and we should come into support, not get hit with the onslaught, because we know that most of us think this way. Most of us agree that the type of wifey projectile idealism that men typically want, and at least in this Western world, is not out here. And what we're left with is what we're left with. And this is the reason why we're getting what we're getting for the large part. See, I don't want to dive too much into it. Well, maybe I do. The large part throughout history, if you look at it, we have not changed. Men have been men since men have been men. We have been falling for the same thing, going for the same thing. It's only one party over the past 50, 60 years that has been a drastic change to what has been happening for the majority of time that we've been on this planet. You know what I mean? So it's not for us under the burden of proof to provide a defense. They have to provide a better offense. And we need to be standing on our square on what has been since what has been, you know what I mean? And not just be cowering in fear.
And see, their offense is magnificent right now. This is one thing I will say about the women right now. If you can get a man to work hard at a job, he's not an NBA basketball player. He doesn't have, these guys don't have 2-3 million records sold and they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. These are regular schmegler guys who work at the post office or at your local Chick-fil-A, or they're at the shipyard or something like that, right? Great, nothing wrong with having any of those jobs. But if you can get a regular schmegler dude to send you $150 to get your nails done, you are the freaking GOAT. It's a whole bunch of them that's been able to achieve this, where they be like, hey, yeah, I'm going out with my girlfriends to lunch. And then they literally have an expectation
Mhm.
for this man to send 50 to $100 or more to pay for lunch, to
Right,
get drinks, and to give a nice tip. And
right,
I'm sitting back like, why don't you just come to the house? I can make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, no problem.
right,
It's food right here, and
right.
we got water that comes out of the refrigerator. Just press the button, right?
Absolutely.
But on some real stuff, man, their their offense is amazing. However, they don't realize that their offense has ran them into the ground. They
Mm,
don't, the ladies of today, the vast majority of them do not realize what they've done to themselves. All right,
mm.
let me touch this just for a second. I don't even know we're gonna get to this.
That's why I said, man. Listen, let's keep going. It's okay. It's okay.
So when you think about the woman, the a lot of the women of today, not all of them, but a lot of the women of today in America, well, a lot of them, they have hair problems by the time they're 50, 60 years old. Well, why? Because they've been wearing somebody else's hair on top of their head for a very long time, whether it be a wig or whether it be sewed in or whether it be glued in. Well, why is that a problem? Airflow. Your head still is, it's breathing through the different little holes that you got on your
Mm,
head. All right, it's
chemicals.
still breathing. Well, what else is a problem? Sunlight, right? These are major issues from wearing weaves and wearing wigs. Now, in addition to chemicals, like we were just saying, some of these weaves are glued in, right? Some of the I would even imagine that some of the chemicals from these wigs may be seeping into the scalp, because you got to keep in mind, man, some of these ladies, they be looking like they've been wearing that wig for like 3-4 months straight, never took it off. You know what
Facts.
I'm saying? So how is that affecting you? Well, we already know that for a bunch of them, it's affecting the way that their hair grows,
Right,
their edges, and all of this. This is just the hair.
right.
I ain't even got to the makeup yet. Let's get to the makeup. Same problem. It's blocking oxygen flow.
Mm,
It's blocking the crevices of the skin to work the way that they're supposed to work.
mm,
So by the time a woman is 40 years old, who's been wearing a whole lot of makeup all the time, well, you get her for a week to not wear makeup, and she might look like she's 60
mm,
if she has a sedentary lifestyle, doesn't drink much water, and hardly ever eats vegetables,
mm,
right? So when you look at how the woman has constructed herself with this offensive plan we were just talking about. With
mm,
this, I mean, it's genius.
mhm,
However, it's not, because it took you down a path where you screwed over your own birthright, your own ability to be gorgeous the way that you naturally are, to
mm,
have your hair growing all the way down to your ankles like it naturally grows, to
mm.
have your beautiful chocolate skin, just sun kissed and glistening like it naturally does. Well, you take all of that away by living this fake lifestyle that you want to live, that's extremely expensive, that you can't even pay for. That's the reason why you got all these brothers paying for it.
Right.
Like, you done ran yourself into the ground. You done ran your daughters into the ground. Don't really understand it. Then you sitting back saying things like, "Oh yeah, man, these men today are so weak," and blah 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 blah. Where'd the men come from? Did they pop out of a wolf? They pop out of a giraffe. Maybe they came out of a rhinoceros or a gorilla
Right,
vagina.
right.
Where did these young men come from? Who raised them?
Mm. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, no accountability with that. And just to touch on the other thing that you talked about is the vows. And this is the thing. It's important for men and women to understand our own nature, because I think that to a degree, if we were put here to certain things, is to understand certain, let's say, carnal natures that we have and to supersede them. You know what I mean? So we understand that the man has challenges with his ego. That's going to be his biggest challenge. We understand that the woman has the biggest challenge is going to be with her vanity. These are things that the source imbued us with these challenges. You know what I mean? So one thing when it comes to the vanity and the selfishness of a lot of the woman counterparts, we talked about the vows, but the vows are such a challenging thing, I think, for most women, because they have hypergamy tendencies when it comes to their natural selection of men and even how they view the world. Yeah. So with that hypergamous nature and this somehow Eve like effect to be in with a man who would be considered perfect for them, but still say, is there something else? You know what I mean? And go ahead, throw in hypergamy specifically in there for me, so we can look at that with the Y. Yes, sir. Okay, kind of the same thing. Go down to the dictionary. Let me see at the below. There we go. Action of marrying, a form of sexual relation with a person of a superior sociological educational background. Absolutely. So this lends, to a lot of women. I won't say all, because we understand it's not all, but it is most. To where their familiarity and content is directly connected to what they deem, doesn't have to be subjected in reality, but to what they deem is their best option, right? And you could be displaying all the same correct characteristics that they fell in love with, and even more. But if they are not deeming these characteristics as the most desirable, and we also understand that men are more disagreeable and more, unique, because I guess testosterone biology, women are more social and agreeable. So we do understand that a lot of time their hypergamous is not even connected to what's in the spirit of truth, but more so what's in the spirit of the societal norms of today and the conversations that are going on, which then warps the perception of what should and shouldn't be desired, which we understand the level of materialism. So even to go back to that vanity point, when you just mentioned that the young brother is having a regular white collar or blue collar job, and he's sending a young lady $150 for vanity driven metrics, is when it becomes extremely nasty work, especially when you understand the climate, the economical climate of today, and the fact that you're willing to waste this man's hard earned, and the fact that the man is even willing to spend the resources on such a $150, $200, $300 to get a hair done, on such a vanity metric for a woman who has, and probably will say that she is a girlfriend, which meaning that since she does classify herself as a girlfriend, means that she's not going to be given wifey duty. So to me, if you're not classifying yourself as a wife, that means that you're basically there to waste a man's time and resources, because you're going to put that invisible barrier of being a girlfriend and wife, and there's meaning that there's certain things that you won't be able to do, but while still putting the man under the burden of performance of being a full man, husband, father, and everything in between, a resource provider. You know what I mean? So once again, I didn't want to get too much into it, but it is a great conversation, and it's something as a current event, which we typically touch on current events before we get started anyway. But this is something that, once again, most women don't understand their own nature. What I like to do is tell men, because we can't hope that the genie's going to put itself back in the bottle. You know what I mean? Because they're not. We have seen that they have some sort of Eve effect. And I call it Eve effect because Eve, in the allegorical story of Genesis, she was in a state of perfection with the perfected state in a perfected man, but she still had her hypergamous capacity to ask herself, is there something more?
Is there something more?
You know what I mean? Is there something? While Adam, because once again, a man, his nature works a lot of bit in the polarity of hypergamous. He's more prone to be satisfied with the state.
Agreed.
Right or wrong, where he might need to pursue something high, but he's more prone for satisfaction and being okay with his current state and not asking, is there something more? Is there something, you know what I mean? So we're both battling with the different duality. But here's what happens specifically within our community is that even while men have been battling their own essence, at least they have been in the familial contract, the head still, the patriarch. You know what I mean? In our society, it has become flipped. You know what I mean? And once again, people like to debate with me, but in the Black American society, I'll say that we absolutely live in the matriarchy, and it has been a matriarchy
correct
for a very long time, which meaning that it's not the woman that walks on eggshells. It's not the woman who's the emotional determinator. I mean, the man who's the emotional determinator of the house. I have a mentor. His father is not from here. I think he's from Guyana. And he said, no, in my house, my father set the emotional tone, meaning whatever way he was feeling, the whole house reacted to that. I said, woof, that had to be some type of strong a house and reverence of a house, because typically it's the verse and everyone, do what your mama said do. Why? Because we don't want to accept the Grinch, and we're operating off her emotional paradigm when it comes to house, because we live in a matriarchy. And I think that within our specific community, that has been one of the biggest detriments to our community, and a concerted effort by powers to be to make it that way, so that we can circumvent, which is, this is right, because it does lead into the principles of gender, so we can circumvent the universal principles that Allah, source, spirit seems to prefer, in order to, because once again, we cannot say that the matriarchy doesn't work. It does work, but instead of producing order, like source, it seems in this reality wanted to, it produces chaos, which I'm not trying to say is not a valid expression of source, but it appears to be incongruent with this timeline that
Well,
we're
it brings us to the divine paradox.
in. Okay,
You
listen.
know?
So let's start rolling into that. Looking, guy, we'll retouch on this if this does trigger some people. Leave it in the comments, and we'll come up with another episode where we'll go further. But since we've naturally, organically seen to slip our way into the topic of conversation, we might as well keep rolling in that momentum. Go ahead, my brother, about that grand paradox.
All right, so everybody, thank y'all for being here today on episode 14 of Community Roundtable. We're talking today about the 7 Hermetic principles. We kind of got off on a tangent about the state of the social space in America, right? But we're going to go ahead and get into our topic today. So the 7 Hermetic principles, according to the 3 initiates of a book called the Kabbalion. That book has the 7 Hermetic principles, which are mentalism. Let me go ahead and put them up on the screen for everybody. So mentalism, which is everything thinks, everything in our universe, everything in our existence is thinking, right? Then there's the principle of correspondence, and I'm just going to give a little basic, and then we're going to Ra and I, we're going to go in. So correspondence is within the more science temple of America, the Noble Drew Ali taught that all things are connected by cords, right? So that is correspondent with the principle of correspondence. All things are connected, right? Everything is connected by some type of cord, right? And whatever happens in one thing, everything else feels that energy somehow. Almost like if you was to throw a rock, out there in the river, and you skip that rock, every one of the skips, the wave that it makes, it's going to make it all the way to the other end of the ocean, right? So this is how correspondence
And
works.
we understand that mostly as above, so below.
There you go. There you go. All right. As above, so below. All right. We're going to get into that too. All right. So our next principle is the principle of vibration. Everything is vibrating. Everything is in movement. That rock that you looking at over there, and that rock look like it's still, it's moving. That blanket is moving. Everything is in vibration, right? And what we're really getting at when we talk about that, when we say that everything is a movement, we're talking about atomic theory. We're talking about electrons, protons, neutrons.
And,
Right.
and let me add a little relish to that. These top 3 principles governs the next 4 that he's going to discuss. So the 1, 2, 3, the principle of mentalism, correspondence, and vibration, these 3 govern the next ones that he's going to talk about.
There you go. So the next principle is polarity. All right. So when you think about a thermometer, where's hot and where's cold? There is no hot, there is no cold. But hot and cold are polarities that we have created as opposites, positive and negative, male and female, right? So when we look at vibration, okay, and I'm gonna just give this real quick and I'm gonna keep going. When we look at a person's vibration, let's say somebody's vibrating high, right? Well, that vibrating high is nothing but a polarity because they can vibrate low. So it can go in a lot of different ways in many different realms and dimensions. This doesn't just hold true on the physical level, it holds true on all realms and dimensions. All right, the next principle is cause and effect. Everything in our existence has a cause. Everything has effects. If we have something that had a cause, there was an effect. If there was an effect, we can trace back and find the cause. And this is manifest with all things in our universe. The next principle, go ahead, I'm listening.
No, my bad. Go ahead.
The next principle is the principle of rhythm. All right. So the principle of rhythm takes us down the path of the pendulum. All right. So life is very similar to waves, like a wave sign. or an EKG machine, where we constantly have this up and down flow, like the stock market, crypto, or any other graph, right? But life works the exact same way. Well, if you understand how that pendulum is moving, you understand the principle of rhythm, you can put yourself in a position to be out of the way of that pendulum when it swings, or you can get hit. Just depends on you. All
And,
right.
and,
So,
and rhythm is also pattern recognition.
yes, facts. Great one right there. So the last principle is the principle of gender. If we want to be whole, we got to live in the reality that we got to have both elements. We got to have male and female, positive and negative. Whatever those opposites are, we have to bring them together in balance, and that's what makes things whole, right? And that's the key to everything in the universe, as Sister Myra Moss says, balance. So let's go back to mentalism and let's see what Ra got to tell us.
Man, listen. These 7 hermetic principles, man. I remember first, just being exposed, and I have them up. That's why I'm looking, on the other side of the screen. I remember being exposed first to, the ideas of this book, and especially when I was younger, trying to read things, man. I was always trying to read books and things to get something out of it. A lot of times it was being tied to some sort of like financial relief, or me wanting to manifest money and things. So when I was reading under those that understanding or energy, I wasn't never able to really grasp the full understanding, because I was approaching it, little did I know it was innocent, but I was approaching it a little bit disingenuous with my energy. But this isn't something that you kind of get. This is stuff that you kind of reflect and sit with. But even when it was breaking down how the truth is 7, anyone, I'm paraphrasing, who understand these truths, all doors to the temples fly open, and I couldn't really understand how something so simple can explain things so complex. And that's basically what the Kabbalion tells you. Another hermetic text is that once you understand and you master, they call these aren't laws. Laws is what comes after principle is set. So these are principles which precedes law. If you know anything about law, you will start to understand that you have to understand the president to understand the law. So these are the things that supersedes even some of the laws and a lot of the laws that we understand in the spiritual world. And these are the foundational pieces of which all things that can or have been created were created. And these laws are also immutable, meaning that even under the spells of amnesia that we go through, the NPC-like thinking, there is some sort of thing here as an objective truth. And if there is an objective truth, they're rooted in these 7 principles. So I know that's a lot to kind of understand, but once you understand, the paradox of this reality that we're talking about, very complex things are often based in very simple ideas or simple concepts, because God is source, is the source of simplicity. So I just wanted to kind of share about my first tap-ins with it before I kind of dive into the principles, the individual principles. And what we're about to talk about is very, very important, and I don't think that we're going to get all of it kind of done in one episode. So this will go back to what you were saying, man. This thing right here, I remember, and I'm a type of person now, when I read things, I might read one line, have to put the book down for 3 months just in contemplation, because I understand that I'm not trying to get through it now. I'm trying to soak in and understand. And I understand that as I change, so does the book, which is really,
Facts.
it really takes reading and consuming information and makes you put yourself under a different think tank when you understand that you're only as good as you are to absorb the information. But when I first came across this principle, and it said that the all is mind and the universe is mental, at first I did not take it at face value. I still wanted to believe in things like physical and flesh, and that there's such things as a real world that is so-called separate from mind. But turning 40 this year, life has shown me different through a multiple of rabbit holes, that when this law starts as the first principle, when it says all is mind, it means all is mind. So any other description that someone else is giving you, and we understand that a lot of times that we use certain words, even Jesus spoke in parables, because some things is beyond the language that we need to use. So we have to find other ways to communicate verbiage and ideas that doesn't blow the top off of most people. But when people are trying to get you to accept the idea that somehow you incarnated into a world of flesh, I think this is a little bit misguided, because it's all mind, it's all mental, it's all operating, despite the appearance, it's all operating within consciousness. And consciousness at its core is the root at everything you see. And I think that mind and mental and consciousness are kind of amalgamated together, because how can you separate mind and consciousness? To say one is kind of to allude to the other. So if they're saying that all is mind, to me, it's saying that all is consciousness. And I just want to just read a little bit here, and I'll pass it to my partner. But the principle embodies the truth that all is mind. It explains that the all, right, which is substantial reality, which is the substantial reality underlying all outward manifestations and appearances, which we know to be the terms of the material universe, the phenomena of life or matter, energy, in short, all that is apparent to our material senses. So this is what I'm talking about, this world of flesh that we think that we're so-called trapped in, how that within itself is an illusion of the mind, because the actuality and the truthality, I like to make up words, is that we are in a consciousness, a conscious grid, a mind, a mental plane, and it's the substrate of everything known manifested, not energy, not all these other descriptive things that we describe, but the source of reality is awareness and consciousness. And I just want to finish up. And in short, all that is apparent to our material senses is spirit, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as, so just, you don't have to go down further. So just to touch on that, because once again, when I get into the Hermetic principles, and when people like to debate me, and I love debates. I do, in good faith and bad faith. We can go either way, because I'm a troll low key. But when I get to have different, and the first time we've ever got on here, we had a few other people on the panel, and I was having, I won't say a little bit of disagreeing, but a little bit of understanding of the knowledge. When I was trying to get people to understand that once we start putting labels on what God is, and that's how we know we have not found God. We're more so playing within the illusion of the Maya once we start labeling, because what God is, I can never tell you, look there or look here. I can never say, hey, Ferdinand, this is this book, or you should look here, because the true nature of what is us is unknowable and unfathomable and ineffable. So that means any attempts of describing it is a failed attempt, but we live in such a magnificent universe, even failed theories can be turned into practicality.
Facts.
So I'll stop there and let my brother give his take on the all is mind and this principle right here.
I want to say you hit it on the head, but I love to look at our ability of manifestation when I think about the principle of mentalism. And that's just us. Obviously, all things are thinking, right? But when we think about us, our thoughts stretch across universes. We're able to fathom things that a lot of other people aren't able to fathom for whatever the reason. I would say that the reason is melanin, but that is what it is. That's a whole nother conversation that we'll jump into. But when I first learned of this material, I applied it, and that's one of the things that I'm big on. I'm big on applying what I learned, because sometimes it's really difficult to know if something that you're reading is facts, because like when you look at this book, the Kabbalion, it could be looked at like misinformation. It really could. When you start breaking down who the three initiates are, why this book was published in Chicago, and all these other types of things, it didn't come from, this book didn't come from Moors, from my understanding. This book didn't come from Hebrew Israelites. This book more than likely came from a few Europeans who learned the secrets and they put them out. Well, at the end of the day, no matter who it comes from, we're supposed to be studying, right? And when I took these 7 principles and I applied them to my life, oh man, I was able to discern truth. Ease. When I took these principles and I used them within the 7 subplanes of each of the great planes, I was able to rise spiritually. I was able to rise like never before.
And,
Go
and,
ahead.
one, and one thing it says that once you understand these principal truths, and even in another Hermetic book, Initiation to the Hermetics, it talked about there's not a phenomena that can help happen in this realm that if you know the 7 Hermetic principle that you won't be under. To other people will be a miracle, but to you, you would know that it will have to fall in one of the 7 or a piece of the 7, and then under these principles, you will be able to describe exactly how that happened. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, man. That's what happened to me. Like quite a few people, I've taken them down the path of reading this book, but I don't think many of them have actually applied the knowledge. But for me, all of the doors opened. I experienced that, and it felt like my entire body was on fire.
Mm,
Well, after that happened, I had this explosion of knowledge. I was able to just take in any kind of knowledge. Well, the knowledge that was easiest to take in was the knowledge that was aligned with my deep core desires.
mm,
Well, I go from being I go from serving as a combat journalist, a combat photographer, to next thing you know, I'm effective in the space of health.
mm,
More effective than the doctors at Riverside and Centera.
mm,
And you know, there's a bunch of people who just didn't believe it because it happened so fast.
mm.
How does a transition like that happen so fast and you never had a holistic health teacher? You didn't go to biology, you didn't go to school for biology or chemistry. There's no holistic health experts that's been your mentor. Nobody's told you exactly which books to read. How did you do that fast? Well, it was because of following this. It
Mhm.
was because of following these principles and the information that's in this book, as well as other books as well. But definitely, I got to give a lot of credit to the Kabbalion because those 7 principles take you to where you need to go to. So to get back on topic, we have the principle of correspondence.
But let's go back real quick. I want you because you don't skip over all this mind. I got to extract some more juice from you from that. Yeah, yeah. Scroll back up. Scroll back up. So when you talk about the reason why this principle is so important, and let's go down to the bottom part. Let's see. Yeah, the second paper has it. Yeah, we can just leave it there for a second. And when we understand, because this is, I think numbers, and especially you, because I have to say you're a numbers guy because you are an astrology guy, and there's no way to be astrology. You have to be so I think numbers and orders are important, especially
Sure.
when they're being channeled in from other fellow let's say alchemists like the 3 initiates, where source uses all types of people as we see to help us decipher truth. But I think that it made it number 1 for a particular reason. And one of my other favorite teachers, his name is Neville Goddard. He always talks about how a rearrangement of mind creates an entirely new different reality. So to me, when I hear what happened to you, is that somehow you had one mind, which was producing a result, being though it's the first principle. You came across a reactionary or a triggerary substance, which rearranged your mind in such a fast pace that the all is mind principle is just and it's unconditional, and it had to even work for someone like you, for someone like myself, to where as soon as our mind, the arrangement of the thoughts from the akashic started to filter in differently because maybe we removed a filter and maybe it allowed more or a different version of thoughts to arrange within the mind, we had an immediately effective move to the second principle, which we're about to discuss. Because first, it says all is mind, which is the so-called above aspect to a degree. And then the correspondence is why the order is so important, what we're about to discuss, because you're about to watch how we transform and how we can show you through these 7 principles that they're not only describing principles, they're describing the men who you see here today, and how, whether through consciousness or unconsciousness, we came across these principles and they did exactly what the book is describing through us being the good spellers right now in this moment. So just touch on for a second
Right.
about the all is mind principle being number 1, and how you had one mind and how you acquired a new mind, and how coincidentally your external started to correspond to the new arrangement of said mind.
When you think about the all is mind, I think about Allah,
Mm,
right? All law.
mm,
Then there's others who say arm, leg, arm, head. right? So that's basically describing God is man, right? So
Put that in your comments the other day.
so when you think about the all is mind, I think about when I'm standing in the mirror,
Mm,
because that's when I want to talk to God,
mm,
I go look in the mirror and start talking,
mm,
right?
mm,
And I'm talking to Allah,
mm,
talking to Source. Most people don't know it. Now, in the Moorish Science Temple, I give a lot of credit to Noble Drew Ali in the Moorish Science Temple, but in the Moorish Science Temple, this is regularly talked about.
right.
This is the everyday, we know this, right? In that space. But a lot of other people, they when they think about what God is, they're not really thinking that it's them. No, the all is mine. The all is everything, all of existence. Everything in one is mind. It's all one mind, right? So as I think about different things, I might be thinking about something that's outside of this dimension.
Mm,
Well, what I just did was created a wormhole.
talk about it. Come on, that's what we came here for.
There's so many ways to go into the all is mind.
And when he says, and we have it right here, it's telling you once again. Read a little bit. It also explains that all the phenomena, world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the law. He talked Allah, the law of created things, in that the universe as a whole and its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all. So I don't think you understand what Ferdinand just told you. We're telling you who's the mind, and he also told you who possesses the mind. You know what I mean?
This is part of the
Go ahead.
This is part of the reason why, like, I've recently got in touch with some pastors. I said, listen, man, you really need to get into Ezekiel, bro. You need to read that, because without doctrines like the Kabbalion, without the Holy Koran, without the Holy Quran, without the teachings of Buddha, without the Vedic and Manic laws, you don't understand exactly what it is that you're teaching. Without the zodiac, you don't understand what you're teaching. You don't understand mind effectively. You don't have a holistic viewpoint of mind. You don't understand that all of what you're doing, all of the congregation, everything that's being done in that ceremony in that church is mind. And you're helping to construct the viewpoints in these minds. Well, what are they going out in the world and doing for the other 6 days of the week, every single week after they get your messages? Because you're shaping part of the one sound, the universe. You're
And
shaping
the
that
universe is, as we're seeing,
one mind.
So when he said earlier how your mind is of rippling through the cosmos, and the reason I feel like even out of all the ones that we talk about, staying on this one for a good push time is so worth it, because I think even for myself, when I'm trying to drill in, because I think when a man thinks mind, it's not the same mind that this book is talking about. When a man thinks mind, he's thinking more selfish nature in his daily affairs. He's
Probably
not
thinking his brain.
exactly. In the mind that this book is talking about, it describes the mind in all as one of the same. You know what I mean? So when we're talking about the ability to think, when the ability to perceive, the ability to entangle yourself, like he talked about, creating them wormholes just through imagining, these aren't fake activities. Somehow, and I always say somehow, because it blows my mind, Ferdinand, but somehow the imaginational mind is God. The use in the ability to think thoughts is the very fabric of everything that we see, is contained within a thought. So this is why, and once again, I don't want to get too deep. What am I talking about? It's time to get deep. So when Ferdinand said that man is God, this is how we reconcile that man is God, because we don't know if animals are using their imaginations. We don't know if other beings are using their imagination. Well, we know for a fact, whether you're using it to be your friend or foe, you are using imagination. And from what we see, there is no other separate conscious I'm picking winner or choosers God outside of man's ability to think on his own mind and use his imagination and be a part of his imagination, and this is where I once again at the bottom it says an understanding of this great hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp. And if you scroll down a little bit, I want to read what it says. Right there, readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply to his well-being and his advancement. The hermetic study is the enabled to apply intelligently the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key, once again, it didn't say the other ones with the master key. It said this one lone principle. And I do believe that you can come back here and pick a principle of your liking because it's fractal, meaning that understanding one kind of lends you to start understanding the all. But why not just sit and meditate on the first one, which is called the master key in his possession, because man does have, and he always has the master key in his possession. The student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic, probably says something else. So once again, and I know that we're not properly doing it all the way justice, and that's okay because we're just starting to cook. But I want you to really grasp when it says that the mind is all, and how we cannot separate. Even me looking at my laptop, I can't call this a laptop, and we know that it's a projection of mind. You can fundamentally understand someone sat down, like the laptop didn't just fall from the sky. Someone sat down and started to imagine and see this thing in God, because God is imagination. God is the use of imagination and awareness to see things that are unseen and then call it forth. You know what I mean? So when we say everything, I'm looking at my wall, I'm looking at everything, and I can say, okay, this is proving that this is all mine because I know these things didn't appear first and then jump in man's mind. I understand man's mind perceives these things, an alternate wormhole, so-called realities, and then attracted to him in all forces, the resources, the abilities, and the knowledge to mold in his own external likeness.
And peep this, right? So when you look at those walls around you, right? Not only did man's mind create them, in their mind, and then they physically created them with their hands, but there's mind in each wall. And watch this, I'm gonna prove it. When it gets really cold in that location, they contract. When they get really warm, they expand.
Which, once again, because what a man bears witness to, he cannot separate from himself, and in all things he will see himself if he stares hard enough. Yo, where's the congregator? We need like an applause button the way we preach. I hope you guys are really, because we're just on the first principle. But once again, I felt like it was important enough to sit because it's the first for a reason. You see, the book itself is calling it the master key, and we're about to move on now, but we couldn't effectively move on to the others because those are the cascade of mind, what we're about to get into. You know what I mean? So, and then once again, a lot of us want principles to work out of order, and they don't. You want rhythm to come before correspondence. You want correspondence. You do have to take them in order. Well, I don't want to think on these things. I don't want to spend time in these imaginational worlds and entangling with these imagination realities so I can strengthen the circuitry, so I can activate the second principle, then the third principle, and then so on and so forth. I want to skip, and I want to go straight to the principle of rhythm or action without mentalism. Right. You know what I mean?
Or they want to go ahead and they want to jump on the 7 subplanes of each of the great planes, and you haven't got a full grasp of the 7 principles.
Exactly.
You need 7 principles as a foundation to start your journey.
And this is the reason why this is the great work, because there's no way to cheat it.
Yes.
There's no way to cheat the system. You know what I mean? So the basic thing that I'm stressing here is that it is important that there is an order. As much as society today likes to gaslight us, and we say in our heart, hey man, this should be some sort of order, and they say no, this order is order. You know, it doesn't matter about numbers. Who need numbers? You could be a 7 if you identify with a 7 and you're a 1, or you could be, you know what I mean? There is a particular
I already
um,
know that one was going.
yeah, there's a particular order. Once again, and as we see, somehow we do have a level of free will to participate in the illusion of circumventing the order, which then thus leads to an effect, which is usually more chaotic and detrimental to the plane that we're in. Or we can acknowledge these immutable principles in the order that they have been presented to us from ourselves through other selves, and really grasp just the first principle when we're understanding the master key. To me, you know, I feel like this book was written over 100 years ago, so I'll place mentalism with imagination. You know what I mean? Because I think that when we're using our minds at all times, that's not using the full power. I think to say using imagination is you automatically kind of denote you're closing off your senses, what you perceive with senses, and then you're going into your true source. You know what I mean? That is a higher hierarchy and supersedes the senses, and you go into the mind, the universal mind that is the all, and then you start to activate a different power, so to speak, when you're using this principle in the form of imaginational use.
You know, let me touch that just for a second. So when you say what you just said, which you said it so eloquently, it brought me to think of the way I used to teach some years ago. And I would teach the mind use works in three. You know, it has its own trinity:
Mm,
conscious, subconscious, superconscious.
mm,
So when you just talked about the use of imagination, it automatically took my mind to activating the superconscious. And the reason why is because in that space of imagination we is where we create our actual real reality, or
mm,
at least the physical reality that we can see and touch with our hands. Well, where does that get built? It gets built in the subconscious.
mm.
I would say that when the superconscious and the conscious are working together, they give instructions to the subconscious much better.
I got some sauce to add to that. You
All right.
know, so once again, he talked about the Holy Trinity. As soon as he said that, you know, this is the beautiful about having great builds are beautiful, because once again, the simulacrum, without us introducing new ideas, just from us rummaging through our current ideas, we're forming new patterns. You know what I mean? So when he said the Holy Trinity, he broke down superconscious, the conscious, and subconscious. The higher self, Akashic, said to me, yes, the Father, the Son, and not the Holy Spirit, because we're not going to denigrate the feminine essence. We're just not going to talk about her true value in this thing. So the superconscious is the Father. You know what I mean? Superconscious, the Father needed the Virgin, the Mary, the substrate that it impregnated, which was the subconscious, right? And then the subconscious then returns and then produce something for the conscious mind to play with. So this is how you have that Holy Trinity of the superconscious, which is aware of what the conscious is not, and kind of how to do it and what to do it. Then you have the subconscious, which is aware of what the superconscious choose to, you know, impregnates. Because once again, even in the Bible, God needed the Sophia to actually produce and bring forth. So the medium is the subconscious for the superconscious. And then finally, the Son, the manifestation, the so-called the physicality, bears witness, you know what I mean, to with the superconscious, the Father, and then the Mother put together. And then it lets you know that the superconscious and subconscious I am also a part of, but I am separate. So this is how you reconcile with the JC, the Christ was actually trying to tell us, just by going off what Ferdinand just said when he breaks down the mind. And I think that is a beautiful way to break down the conscious, the superconscious, something that is greater or above the conscious. And then we have the subconscious, which once again, our ladies who embody a lot of the feminine essence on this plane thinks that the subconscious is a lower or a lesser, when it's not. It's just as equivalent and just as necessary as the superconscious. It's not a greater force. They just have different roles. They have different roles. You know what I mean? So when the subconscious, the feminine essence, the life bringer, the thing that the soil, the fertile grounds gets the seed, which the seed is a superconscious. The seed contains the program. but it needs the soil, the fertile, to bring it forth. And then when it sprouts, that is the conscious, that is the evidence, that is the judge them by the tree. So that was a beautiful, eloquent way that you put it. And I just wanted to add the sauce because the Bible is trying to tell us allegorically the same thing through the same way, through more of a dramatic story. So, and look, we're still on the mental, and we're just about to get to principle 2, and we've been cooking up like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro, you really are cooking, man. Real
It's
talk.
us, man. Listen, this is sharp steel and steel. So I think we're ready, man. I say with that, it'll help us understand what correspondence. And I would like for you to read the paragraph now, since I did the first one, and then we'll kind of build off of.
That'll work.
Yeah, build off the read of the correspondence.
All right. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below. You said you can't see me?
I can't see. I can see you. I can't see.
Oh, let me put the book up there on the screen.
There we go.
All right. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below. As below, so above, the Kabbalion. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being in life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words: as above, so below; as below, so above. And the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. Go ahead.
And let me just jump in. So we really shouldn't be doing this, you know what I mean? Because some of the stuff you have to be an adept to get, but we're kind of like, but we're in the age of enlightenment, you know what I mean? Because the quickest way to get your flame lit is to get around someone else whose flame is already lit, and we're in that era. But these books are put together very mysteriously, like they're giving you tidbits of truth within it. So, and if you could bring the screen up so I can point exactly to what it's talking about. Yeah. So, and when it's talking about the means of solving the dark paradox and the hidden secret of nature, it's talking about the first principle. It's talking about the principle of mind, because the principle of mind is the hidden, but it's not coming straight out, and it's not just telling you that's what it's talking about, because it wants you to really soak it in and go and do your own research. But since we are being put here to, as you see, to tear aside the veil of ISIS, so that in this age, other people can see kind of what we see, I had to just jump in to let you know that there are planes beyond our knowing. The planes that they're talking about is the ones that are in the mental. So it's not describing some other principle that it didn't already cover. They're going in a particular order. So it's just, they've hidden it in, because during the time that these books were written in, which was under a different age, information was not widely given. A lot of people were persecuted for it, so they had to speak in certain allegorical riddles. Even though it's describing what it is, it's still concealing, because this is the nature of esoteric arts, is to conceal and only really give the fruits to the initiates, which, Ferdinand, I know being where you was at yesterday, you have a whole vast of knowledge. But I do believe that we are in the age of the Judas, which we are the betrayers of the Messianic secrets. That what they held to you, we are turning the Christ over to you. Say, here, have the secrets. I'm going to let you know where the body is, because we're just age. So I just wanted to touch on that this hidden secrets and the nature and the dark paradoxes that they're talking about, all that is contained within the principle of mentalism. So this is why they're trying to tell you that there's a correspondence to this plane that is working off another plane, but the plane they're talking about is the plane of the mind, my brother. So whatever.
And since we're giving away the secrets, I'm gonna go ahead and give you all that hidden secret of nature that the three initiates are discussing in this chapter. Okay, so when we look at marijuana, is a great plant to use.
Absolutely.
When we look at that plant and use it as an example, if you watch the main stalk of the marijuana plant, the buds, once it starts flowering, the buds grow in a vortex. Okay. Now, the reason why this vortex is so important is because you can find it anywhere in nature, but you can also find it when water is running down a spout. You can also find it when a plane is flying through the air and they fly through a cloud, right? Or they fly through some chemtrails. right? You can see this vortex in everything. We call it the golden ratio. We call it the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, so this I would imagine that this is the hidden secret in nature that they're discussing. But I would say that when we go back to what Ra was just saying about how certain things are kind of masked a little bit in material in these different doctrines, so that only the true initiate would figure them out. Well, how does the true initiate figure it out? This is how they do it. When the early Greeks first established medical schools, you had to be of a certain caliber just to get into the medical school. But if you made it into the medical school, you was a vegetarian for the whole time you was there. This is for raising the vibration and putting an initiate in a position where they have constructed themselves as the truth. And the more of the truth that a person makes of themselves and walks in that righteous life, as they read material, like you were saying earlier, it's a whole different book now. It's almost like it's totally different information, even though it's the exact same.
Has it always said this?
Right, because now you have became the truth. So it's a mirror in life. You can
come on, no. Rewind that. So you're saying words are meaningless. You are the meaning to everything because it's reflecting you.
You cooking right now.
Is that what you just told me? I'm just repeating what I heard.
Man,
what you said. That's what you said. Hey man, look, we've been off for like 2-3 weeks, man. I told you I was excited for tonight, but just to add some more relish to what my man said, you know what I mean? Where he's trying to, and I don't even think that he was conscious when he said, that's how it comes through. Sometimes the streams of consciousness and you catch it on the replay on what you just said. But he just basically said is that the only reason why you can see the truth in the literature is because you became the truth. And he said that it's truly reflecting you, going back to the all is mine, or he is right, the hidden secret nature. It's all contained in the darkness of you. You are in darkness of yourself. So this is why even doing etymology and diving down these words, because I believe everything is describing you under the guise that is describing something other than self. Lo, look here, look there. But then Christ came back and said, if they say that, if you're reading any material and it's triggering your energy or thoughts to think of something other than self, you have found the wrong God. Because I tell you, the kingdom is within inside of you. The hidden secret, the nature, the great dark paradox, they're talking about you. You are in the darkness of yourself. And as you come into the spirit of purity, as my brother Ferdinand always says, and the spirit of righteousness, which is not righteousness based on what we understand human morality. Righteousness could be just edifying yourself, doing good things by your body, getting rude. These are righteous tactics, not based off human laws and something else that we tend to think of. We'll start to become the thing that we're seeking. So everything we look at, we start to see God, which was always there. Right? Because like I said, did someone go back and rewrite the book? Now the book is speaking truth, or are you writing the book in real time?
I can tell you right now how to measure if a man or a woman is living righteous. I can tell you right now, okay? Right. And it's easy to find out. When we look at the journey of uplifting fallen humanity, now that's an MSTA journey. However, I would say that all people should be walking that journey of helping their fellow brother and their sister, which would be uplifting fallen humanity. Now, if we want to measure if a person's living righteous, when we think about uplifting fallen humanity, if their moves in life are consistently along the lines of righteously uplifting fallen humanity, I would have to say that not only are the things that they're doing are right, but they are living righteous. And the only reason why they could do right is because they were living righteous. Now, a lot of the times we have these goofy thought patterns of what major success is, right? Well, when I open up the Holy Koran or the mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood, I see that Jesus, he was excited when he was able to come into a whole lot of food and give it away to a bunch of kids that were hungry, right? Well, this is success. However, It's also a success to sell all your stock at the right time, make a whole lot of money, even though a bunch of the other stock owners, their stocks were now devalued
Right.
to a point where they can get nothing from what they got. It was success what that investor did, but was it righteous? So I would say that, and I know we weren't really necessarily supposed to go down this path.
No, that was deep because, you know, once again, and I've gone through a lot of different myriad of what I feel like I should be doing here or purpose and these different things. And, you know, I'm starting to understand that, you know, I can't see God in myself unless I'm seeing God in everyone else, you know. So if I can be aware of self, but then I could be aware of, you know, me being around people that is acting other than self, that shows me that there's still some work to be done, because now I think I'm starting to evolve to your level of what righteousness is, which is, it's not necessarily what's affecting you, but how are you uplifting the consciousness of all? Because if all is mine, that means that all of these people are different reflections of me. And this is what Christ, when we really understand the story of Christ, because he was already in his exalted position, but solo, man wasn't included.
You know, and just real quick, I'm not going to take long with this one, but when you say how you think and it's connected to everybody, that brings us back to the principle of correspondence, and what our thoughts are is affecting everybody. What we're choosing to use our time on is affecting everybody. So a real good way for us to measure this is to look at the melanated community in America. Well, the melanated community in America, quote unquote, came out of slavery like 160 years ago or something like that, right? Real close to that amount of time, right? And how much advancement have they made in that amount of time? Right. Well, 30 years after coming out of slavery, we already had a university called Tuskegee. Well, actually, Hampton already existed before. Hampton Institute already existed before. What is the problem? Why are the people not winning? Right? Well, this has a lot to do with the individual thoughts of the people in that group. Now, we know that there's been spiritual warfare waged on the melanated community. So they got some good reasons, not good reasons, but they got good reasons why they're in the state that they're in, right? However, it's still a situation of, even if your emotions and your thoughts get hijacked, they're still connected to everything.
Right.
You're still creating correspondence regardless. And with the way melanated people work, a lot of the times, monkey see, monkey do.
Right.
If Ray is doing it, listen, Daquan is doing it too.
Right.
If Rakisha is doing it, so is Alana. She doing it too, right? You know, if everybody if all the ninjas start running in that direction, chances are this ninja right here is running that way too, because it might be an active shooter.
That's a fact. But look, just leading credence to what you're saying, and I feel like it's all relevant. So we'll keep talking about it. We understand that there's been these programs, right? And we have to look at the names. You know, we're big on names, we're big on words. You know, so there's a specific reason why there is a program that is affecting the foundational Black people of this country, called COINTELPRO, and also more specifically stopping the rise of the quote unquote Black Messiah messenger. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, out of everything that they could have created, they could have said the next Black billionaire. They could have said, you know what I mean? There was a lot of words that they could have used to say, you know, these are threats. The next Black militant man. But they talked about the rise of a Black messenger, or a Messiah, or as Ferdinand always called himself, the bringer of truth, if I'm not mistaken. This was something that has been feared amongst our particular set of people, amongst all other things. People that can sit here and bring to you information of self just like this. And that's the beautiful part about, once again, I do have the love-hate relationship with the Melanades of this America, but I can't, because these are the same people that brought us the Moorish Temple. These are the same people that brought us the 5%. These are the same people that brought us NOI. These are the same people that brought us supreme mathematics and the knowledge, and on top of it. So if the knowledge is coming to the people and the people receive it not, what I mean, we cannot discredit as acting as if our particular group and subset in America are not a part of the most enlightened groups on the entire planet, and we cannot allow a small subsegment of our group, or even maybe if it's a larger group, to monolithically describe the entirety of us. Because even you and me and you, my brother, we're coming from two different distinct schools of thoughts, but here we are merging. Why? Because there were some, not people in other countries, in Melanesian other countries, but people right here that somehow understood religion, but decided to teach another type of spirituality, another type of understanding, than where we can say peace to the gods and gods on the earth and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So this has absolutely been a spiritual warfare against one, but what they did not consider is the age that we're in. And going back to what we did several weeks ago, talk about the age of Aquarius and Gemini, they did not suspect that there won't be not one black Jesus Christ, one black Messiah, but there will be many. There will be.
That right there, that point right there is where I slightly disagree. I think that they were anticipating many messiahs.
Talk to me.
I think that's the reason why they created the FBI, because if you look at the FBI's origin, it's originated around the same time as Marcus Garvey. Right? Well, they already knew. According to Noble Drew Ali, we entered the age of Aquarius around 1860s. Okay? All right, so now that's something in the Moorish Science Temple that circles in that space. The bulk of the world believes we came into the age of Aquarius in 2012. But the reason why I'm bringing up the age of Aquarius is because that's the age of I know. That's the age of the humanitarian. That's the age of air energy, intelligence. So what are we talking about? We're talking about people waking up, right? Well, look at all these messiahs, or possible messiahs who rose during the 1900s. We're talking about Malcolm X. We're talking about Elijah Poole Bey, Elijah Muhammad. We're talking about Fard Muhammad. We're talking about Noble Drew Ali. We're talking about Marcus Garvey. We're talking about Fred Hampton. We're talking about Stokely Carmichael. And the list goes on and on. Malachi Z. York, Martin Luther King. These are all potential messiahs.
Talk to him.
Look what happened to just about every one of them that I just named.
Absolutely.
The equivalent of being nailed to a cross.
And I will concur with my brother, because they do understand this astrological game heavy. And once again, so this is why the great paradox is so beautiful, because you're allowed to hold dual beliefs. So, overall, I understand that this is some sort of simulated timeline that has particular conditions. But hey, despite I decided to come back as I am and what I am. I didn't come back clear. I didn't come back with out features that I could be ambiguous. I came back, with certain features and tied to a certain lineage, which I think is important to my experience here, on this particular timeline. So I say all I have to say this is that I think that they somehow absolutely didn't know that there is an alignment with the so-called melanated foundational pieces that are here in America, that there's some sort of, it wasn't something we earned. This is why it baffles them. It's something that was gifted to us. You know what I mean? It's a favor that was gifted to a particular subset of people. Maybe someone seen what we went through or foreknew that what we was going to go through and decided that whatever transformational process that we go through, that we deserve not to be the tail for the entire duration, but to be the head at some point. So there is absolutely astrological and esoteric information that these people have, which is the reason why they do attack us and that they do use words like black messiahs. And I think they understand to a degree that the days are numbered, because the stars showed them that there will be times like this where you have brothers who are like us, because I know we're not alone, and I won't even allow my ego to give me just the fact that I'm talking here with Ferdinand. My ego won't allow me to think that I'm just solo. There are many of us, and we are coming together like Voltron, and we are remembering, also ancient ancient stuff and from other lands, but we don't even have to go that far because we have the Master Farrar, we have the Noble Drew Alis, we have the Farrakhan's, and we have the 5%ers and all the factions of esoteric knowledge that has been stole to a particular subset of people that I don't know if all melanated people in the Caribbean islands, in South America, in the African continent are getting to the level that we're getting. So to me, this is why I always say that it's scriptural and it's biblical, because it's hard for me not to deduce that with the pattern recognition of the principle of rhythm, that somehow something is brewing up to where the information that is needed, there's going to be a particular group of people who understood it, and then they'll look and see, wow, we had the messengers the whole time, but we received them not. We had the book of truth walking amongst us like a Master Farad, and like Elijah Poole, recognizing God in flesh, or a person who reached a level of understanding to where his frequency gave off that he knew who he was in himself. But we know that man is God and God is man, and you can't separate the two, you know, and we're still looking for this translucent white man to fall out the sky that is other than self, because we can't accept that if there was going to be a rise or a God or a new God, he was going to be risen from amongst us and look just like us. And like the Bible said, when you see him, you shall know him, because you shall be one of them, or you shall look like him, depending on the translation that that you're reading. So, and it's not a coincidence that we're talking like this and we're going over the Kabbalion and we're going over this stuff, because it really is. Yo, is that a cigar? Jesus Christ, my man. That's no way that's a Jesus Christ. I gotta come over there. That looks like a cigar. You know what I mean? Yes, get the elevation of the ancestors of the Anubis, of the Anubis.
Let me touch that real quick, right? So you were saying somehow they knew, right? So where did this 400-year curse come from? How did they know these exact times? It's the zodiac. When we come into the age of Aquarius, the planet that rules Saturn. Saturn is the father of time. You and I talked about it. The Greeks used to call it Chronos. It's the father of justice. It's the planet of justice. It's the lord of karma. Now, Saturn's planet is black. All planets are associated with colors, right? So when you think about Saturn coming back into its full essence, that it is bringing wickedness to justice, and it's bringing righteousness amongst the ancient bloodlines back to their full mantle of leadership, right? So the tail becomes the head becomes the tail. They knew all of this was going to take place. They knew that the age of belief, they could do damn near anything, right? So they had 2,000 years of that. That's Pisces. Pisces is I believe. Aquarius is I know, right? So when did people start knowing? People started knowing in the 1800s. They really started to know. And I'm not talking about all around, everywhere in the world. A bunch of other places in the world, they already knew. But let's just say in the United States of America. In the United States of America, there was a whole bunch of people, no matter what their color was, who didn't know. They believed whatever they were told. But they got to a point where it's like, all right, it's time to know. Well, how do we get there? Like I said, I'm not trying to rant, but the point that I'm trying to make is they understood that once the age of Aquarius took place, there was going to have to be a Messiah that came to power to lead the people out of this system, these systems that they're in, this matrix that they're in, because it's slavery. So if you know that you're going to lose power, you put a whole bunch of you throw a whole bunch of problems into the Hunger Games to make sure nobody can rise. So you can hold on to your power as long as possible. But it really still comes back to the zodiac. You know, looking at these holidays, looking at the forming of nations, looking at the locations of these cities. I mean, there's so many pieces in this. And obviously that's a whole other.
Oh no! Listen. From what I understand, even though I love to talk to all people, but I understand for whatever reason, of course the reason, but my attraction factor, I usually, no matter what I'm talking about, we attract melanated people. So even though we're breaking down the Kabbalion, this is still a conversation under a melanoid filter. So absolutely everything we said is congruent with doing what we talked about earlier, which is just being a bridge to bridge the gap of information as we were put here or decided that we wanted to do. So it's absolutely relevant, everything that we're saying, because all this information is being tied in. And when you start to see the melanoid foundational piece of America start to rise and being put in positions, then you'll understand that somehow there is a special anointing under, especially the ones who can master this English language. Like, I talked about before, the
That
English
part.
language. Yes, sir.
No, I was just saying that part right there. Keep
Yeah.
going.
That can master this English language, because there's the English language is such an amalgamation of different ancient god spells put into one form and mashed together to produce a particular resonance and frequency. And I have other people who are speak other languages as a first language, and they say like, yo, there's certain ways that you can express, especially when it comes to the esoteric and quantum fields, that they just can't because they don't have the vocabulary. Because maybe theirs is just Portuguese, or this ours is Portuguese. Ours is a little bit of whatever we needed to create the word spell to get across the vibrational sounds that we needed to.
With Ebonics to add.
And so that's another thing that I think gives us, because they say, oh, you only speak one language. No, if you're a Black American, we speak two. We speak the English and we speak Ebonics, which is our own language, and the language is so pervasive. And I forget I'm live, but hey, it is what it is. I remember a time when our non-melanated counterparts, we used to hear the cadence of their voice. Hey, Johnny, I say that you should do this, and then we should go here, and then no rhythm, no sound. I heard your boy Charleston White call it the peckerwood. Like they used to sound like peckerwoods. You know what I mean? Now listen to the yo, what's up? What you doing? You chilling? Oh, yeah, nah. Is it cool over there? Yo, that sounds based. These is all Ebonics melanated words that we created a language within a language to produce soul.
That slightly changes as we change our vibration of love or excitement or fun or whatever, and then we give different types of Ebonics based on that.
And then that James Brown, they asked them, what is it? It's soul. It's like they gave us one thing, it produced a result. We took it into our melanated darkness, and when it came back out, it wasn't the same way, that it went in. It came out a whole different way. And then the non-melanated people said, what's that? And we said, that's soul.
I got you, right? So my brothers and sisters, I'm here with you today to tell you that God has got a word for you. Yes. Listen, I'm telling you right now, God's got a word for you.
Yes.
Okay? You need to understand. Hallelujah.
Yes. Come on now. Talk the language. My spirit rising on. and when they come to our institutions of worship and they hear the cadence, they're like, what is this feeling that I'm feeling? You know what I mean? And then they hear the sounds of worship, which is the music that we use. We didn't get that from them. I used to go to a Catholic school. Oh, we have arrived to the top thing on the thing, and you know what I'm saying? Then they gave us this magnificent English language, right? And then we took it, and like you just did, the pastor man, the preacher man, the Malcolm X's, we was able to, the James Brown, we was able to bend these vowels that I don't think if we spoke Swahili and some of these other that we can produce the same resonance, because if it's possible, they would have already done it. And these other languages would be the number one genre of music, because music is the number one communicator, but it's not. It's English-based R&B and hip hop that was made by the so-called, slaves or whatever, people who were already here. So this is why it's a very important time when someone like you, brother, doing God work, when you're taking the European literature and soaking it in, then regurgitating it back out with the same cadence that you did with the pastor and the preacher. Because now when the Peckerwood is saying it, it's not hitting because it has no soul. You know what I mean? But now when you say it, or when Noble Drew Ali say it, or when Master Farad say it, or when, and yes, we might use some Arabic tone to describe, but most of this is in English. Why? Because I believe, just based off studying the English language, that it produces a sound resonance to bring forth manifest destiny that the Peckerwoods know, but for whatever reason, when they say it, it's not fully coming. Come on now, walk with me. It's not fully coming to fruition. But when we say, they say, oh my God, we have to stop these people. We have to stop the rise. Because once again, we cannot also separate NOI from Noble Drew Ali. Because who was Master Farad running around with, and who were cahoots with each other? You know what I'm trying to say? So it's like
Elijah Poole. How does he become Elijah Poole Bey?
Come on.
Before he becomes Elijah Muhammad.
Exactly. So, and I know some of my, shout out to my NOI brother, I know a lot of them, but and I know this might, but see, since I'm not criticizing the so-called Sunni Islam, I might be a little bit safe on these internet streets, but I won't say how I really say it. But to me, coming from a lot of high knowing people within the NOI and some of these other groups, these are things that are presenting themselves as religion, but these are really Masonic orders. Because once you go past what the front filter is, even with the Holy Quran, and you start to get into Master Farad's teachings, you start to get into Elijah Muhammad's teachings, and the real teaching that they only give you through their pamphlets. Once you're in it, you start to see, oh, how do you guys know the circumference of the moon and the earth and the waters and the thing? Like, what does this have to do with Jesus? This is a different type of information you guys are embedding into, because you're trying to give a different. Then you start talking about the people on Mars. This ain't the Quran. This ain't the. You start talking about the mothership and the plane. How did you know this? Because the other religions weren't teaching this. They just stopped us with the Nephilim and this, and then the UFO stuff just disappeared. You have to go find it. How did you, people in this particular region speaking the English language, stumble upon such secrets and then figured out a way to give it to our people, to where when we start a new music and we start calling ourselves Grandmaster Cass, Grandmaster Flash, so you can't even separate the creation of hip hop from the supreme knowledge, because as we see, they was even throwing it in within that and disguising that somehow our people and people were led to our people in particular to give us not just religion, but the message of self and who self is. And how I was listening to Farrakhan the other day, and how like you said earlier, the stars, the moons, the galaxy, it's not vice versa. These things, we're not a part of these things are a part of us, which lends back to what we're trying to tell you within this book of the Kabbalion, when we're trying to tell you that man is the creator of all that he sees, and there is no other God besides man, in man's mind, most in particularly. So I know we audience, as whoever's watching, know that it wasn't intentional. Y'all probably over there holding on to your seats the way I know when someone's cooking. We cooking over here. You know what I mean?
And I love how like everything you just brought up really was like, a lot of it was vibration. You know, when you think about the similarities within the melanated community, no matter what type of education system they came up in, you see a lot of the ladies with similar names, or at least the last part of the name might be similar. The first part of the name may be similar. These are vibrational frequencies that are comfortable. Why are they comfortable?
Right.
That takes us back to DNA, right? That takes us back to the vibration of bloodlines, vibration of DNA structures, 9 ether, right? That takes us to some very, very beautiful places. Like you said, so you said some things in there, bro. You wasn't just cooking, man. You just did a whole cookout.
Listen, man, we alley-ooping back and forth. Like I said, even when you told me, I said, man, this is crazy, because even though I see the name, but one doesn't understand how deep into the knowledge one is. And when you told me, like, hey man, let's do the, I gotta be at the temple to celebrate. I said, okay, my brother is really connected into the source. And then it gives me even more sense of pride of who we are today, because we are reactivating. And then once again, just to reach back into the correspondence where, you know, it says as above, so below, right? But a lot of us always just get left on that. And this goes back to another post that you had said before when you said that that the ancients, and I'm paraphrasing, that they were, yes, sir, that they were mapping out the you know, the above on the earth. You know what I mean? And it might be a little bit
They
of
created a star map of using the earth as a canvas.
canvas, yes, and it might even been a little bit of vice versa. They might have understood to some degree, because like I said, we always say as above, so below, but I never hear people say as below, so above. So I end up regurgitating that even more instead of starting with as above, so below, to keep our heads out the sky and put it back to look down. Because at the same time, yes, what up is manifesting low, but it's not a hierarchy. What's below is also manifesting what's above. It's a relationship, a mutual relationship. So
So,
say it again.
I'm sorry, brother. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
When you think about as above, so below, and this is for the audience. Think about it from the perspective of a tree, right? So the roots of the tree are the same as the vegetation above ground.
Yes,
but what you're looking at is the positive and the negative. You're looking at the male and the female, right? You're looking at the opposites that work together in balance. This is as above, so below. Another great example of as above, so below, before I give the mic back to my brother, is looking at you, right? Looking at the makeup of yourself. You are a manifestation of universes, right? But then when you look outside of the universe, you can see you, right? Some of you is called Aquarius. Some of you is called Leo. Some of you is called Mars. Some of you is called Andromeda. Some of you is called Sirius. You know, so understanding that as above, so below. Now what you understand is a different level of your connection, the principle of correspondence of you to this universe, of you to the plant, of you to this house, of you, of your spirit, your mind and your body, or your spirit and your body, right? Your spirit and your mind and your spirit, right? Because it goes both ways, as you were saying. You got the floor, my brother.
And I want to add to, when we think of that, we are the microcosm of the, and I heard Farrakhan mention this too the other day, and the universe is the macrocosm. We have to understand that when we look at ourselves in that reflection, the as below, the universe is looking at itself as just how we look at it. Wonders is looking at us just as wonder, like, oh my God, look at man, look at another personification of ourselves. So we can't think just because we see man in his so-called limitations that this a man is any less inferior to the macrocosm, which is the universe, because it's not. The whole universe is really bending to man. It's only being created because man exists. And then the great paradox is vice versa. The great universe, man only exists because of the great universe, but the great universe only exists because of man. So it is a direct relationship, because guess what? The reason why the as below is so important, because sometimes you might have your mind on the Akashic and you're trying to figure out the as above, and it won't come to you. But since you won't spend enough time studying the below, because the below, if you study the below long enough, it's going to reveal. And I don't have it up, you had it up, but if we kept reading the correspondence, which we didn't even get to yet, it would have showed you that the below is also revealing the as above, because you cannot separate the two, and they are both parental towards each other, which meaning that just by working with the as above and moving around, it changes the as below. But same thing, if you start to move things on the as below, because maybe you just can't meditate today. But I got my body and I can use my body as the as below mechanism. I can rearrange it, I can stretch it, I can force it to read affirmations, I can force it to watch something else. And just by me working with the lower elements, the lower vibratory elements, I am rest assured that as on earth, my brother, so is in heaven. And they can never be separated. So when you can't get to that so-called, this is why I'm so, not so against, but when people always talk about higher, I said, man, we can't disregard the lower, because there's been times where I could not get to the higher. The universe maybe had cut me off, so all I had to do was work with the manipulative, the lower realms. But because I was working with the lower realms and shuffling things around and rearranging things, I was rest assured that the heavens were moving with me, because the heavens don't precede the below. They are both mutually in a dance and tango with each other. So when you add some sauce, go ahead, my brother.
So deep this, right? So often in the temples, you'll hear the sheiks talk about how Moors, you got saving power here with the Holy Koran. You got what you need right here, right? And they do. I swear by that book. I've read a lot of books. That book has what we need for saving the nation, right? I swear by that as facts. But a lot of these sheiks don't understand why the Moors aren't following the doctrine, right? Why they're not living the life the way they're supposed to. Some of them will say it, but they'll hit surface level. Oh man, you got to pay attention to what you're putting in, because that's what you're gonna put out. And that's correct. Make no mistake about it. They're not incorrect, but you got to dive a little deeper, Sheik. You got to really help these Moors understand. Well, if you're eating yellow dye 5, it's going to produce this type of behavior. If you're eating the chicken that's grown in the tank at KFC every day, it's going to produce this type of behavior, and it's going to produce this type of overgrowth, and it's going to produce this type of blood flow, and how all of these things are interconnected, and da 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 da. Well, what is that? That's us going back to Ra's point about sometimes you're not able to work with the higher. You didn't reach the zenith of the higher until you hit a certain level of the lower, right? Of the negative, or you already did what you can do in the positive. So like if we're trying to reach spiritual ascension, yeah, we definitely should use our doctrines to help us. But our doctrines can only take us so far. We've got to work in that lower realm as well. So as above, so below. We got to have balance to ascend.
And let me add some sauce. Once again, we said this is the spirit of revelation. And you've also, mentioned that where it seems like we're in the book of Revelation. So, hey, I'm gonna keep on revealing. When you talk about King Solomon and how Solomon built the temple, and then you start to dive, into the esoterics, and then you start to understand a book called The Lesser Keys of Solomon. And you start to understand that every so-called earthly matter that he got from working lower magic and using so-called lesser beings to perform works and do things for him. So this is how much important the physical world is, to not always disregard our senses in favor of an invisible force that we're not always aware of, because the invisible force is always making itself known and made manifested through our senses at all times. So as my uncle, he's part of the nation, and a very spiritual man, has taught me so much. He always tell me, because I love books. He criticized me a little bit. Nephew, what was man doing before books was created? You know what I mean? How did he understand? How did he know anything? He studied nature. You know what I mean? And then he always tell me, when I'm talking about source of the infinite, he can, nephew, there's no mystery God. There's no spook God. You know what I mean? He always say, he was first when I ever heard Allah, arms, legs, arms, head. I never heard that before, because when I was, pontificating my esoteric beliefs, he felt like that I was putting too much emphasis on this higher invisible spook source, and I was putting less emphasis on the man, you know what I mean, as the center point of his universe, and not alienating the lower nature of man, but accepting that it is godly, divine, just as much as the higher unseen nature of man, and work with both. And he employed me to take my mind out of the sky, the Akashis, or wherever it was, which was giving me a level of disconnectedness to alleged reality it was, and understand the lower keys, understand. Even in the piano, they have lower keys, understanding, the below to the as above, and know that the below, since it is a piece and spark of divine creation, it is equal in divinity to the higher. And don't let no one confuse me that the above, I should pay more attention. I should be balanced, as Ferdinand just said, and pay attention to both and reconcile both. And when one door shuts, if I can't get to it physically, I go to it metaphysically. If I can't get to it metaphysically, I come back to the physical. And then listen, we'll do this recursive dance till I figure out what I need to figure out. So I think right now I've had my head in the clouds so much, and now I'm getting back to the lower. And I had an instant conversation with one of my women friends, and she was saying something, I can't remember everything, but she was basically saying, well, we'll just have to wait on the most high. And I comment back snarkily, or the most low. We always talk about the most high, but we never talk about the most low. You know what I mean? And we're always giving, this negligence to where we are in this 3D realm and to our physical bodies. And we're always, I feel like, over bigging up the higher aspect of ourselves, which creates an imbalance, because how we sometimes use the negative dispositions of our so-called physicality, of our so-called flawedness, which we understand that flaw was a enhancement that was given to man, because if man could not make flaws, that means man could not make new patterns. It's only through our flaws that we get to use the simulacrum, which I don't need a new incident. I can just look at the so-called mistake that I made, take notes, and then by me just analyzing what I've already done, it creates something new. So I was able to have a new pattern without introducing a new idea, just going over the ideas that I did not like about myself, the so-called flaws. So, once again, man, this is really a high-level conversation that we're having right here. And I appreciate it, even no one else can appreciate it, because we're really, to me, and I didn't heard a lot of people speak. I've heard a lot of teachers speak. I've read a lot of books. The way that we're phrasing this conversation right now is standing unique in its own weight against any conversation that's happening out there in the ethos right now. And I'll stand on that against anyone. I don't care who platform, who school, who what. If someone was to listen to this and say that we are not chopping up some of the most highest supremacists, and yes, to check my ego, we are standing on our ancestors' shoulders and calling ourselves tall. But sometimes that is required to know where you are. Sometimes it is required to be able to, measure yourself and say, I am glad that we had these people that preceded us, but should we not know more than what did they live for? We only knew the limit to their knowledge. You know what I mean? They didn't have a chance to go through their whole life story and read back on themselves and make an improvement. We can look at Noble Drew Ali, Master Farad, Elijah Poole, all these great leaders that came in before and watched their whole life entire span, then reiterate new ideas on top of it that should be just as profound or more. You shall perform even greater works than us. And if there ever was a teacher that was not preaching that, even though they may be great, but the greatest is yet to come, the best teachers haven't even made it yet. And I feel like we are living in that fruition, of these type of things, which once again, just like those men of those times, some people recognize, some people didn't. As you see, I don't think it's anyone even watching us here. And I'm telling you, we are right now the Master Farads, and someone is the Elijah Poole and say, yo, that's the word of God right now that they speaking. But since it came in a human form and they was confused on who God was, they weren't able to receive what Elijah Poole was able to receive. You know what I mean? So shout out to you, man, my brother. Appreciate it, because I understand that it's in the silence where I kind of get the rhythm, but I need another counterpart to really bring out the best of it. You know what I mean? To really take things to the next level. It doesn't happen by yourself, a certain portion of it, but then you have to go amongst. Jesus even needed disciples or members to take a philosophy and chop it down to really get into, the weeds of it. And in this conversation, man, it's not speaking through arrogance or cockiness. I know when the spirit of truth, and it's not even coming from me, because it's being, I can feel when it's being channeled in from sources. And same thing with you. When I'm asking, hey man, say that again, you're like, because you don't know what you said, because it's not coming from you. You know what I'm saying? You're just the me channel. Yes, of the exchange, but I can hear what's coming from us and know, yo, this is some amazing information. And if there's no audience to appreciate here, let's appreciate each other for it.
That's not facts. And I want to say I appreciate you for taking out the time to be here, as well as having these great conversations when we're available. I want to touch on the below again.
Let's go.
When you think about spiritual ascension, then you also think about holistic healing. The pathways are one and the same. Okay, so we can do as much reading and meditating as we want to do, but fasting is necessary. So what is that? Sacrifice.
Faith without works is dead. Continue.
Exactly. Detoxification, cleansing out the body, rebuilding the body, nourishing the body, right? Now that in itself takes the mind, the body, and the spirit to a whole nother level. But then continuing to remake that body and continuing this pathway of sacrifice. Right? So we're not when we really remake ourselves.
Don't they say it takes 7 years for that to happen too? Allegedly, every 7 years the body kind of renews.
So the body renews every 9 to 10, maximum 11 months. It completely rebuilds itself. We're talking about a full shedding of brain, organ, bone, skin, vein, blood, all of it, right? It replaces itself. So this is the beauty of the human body, right? It works in cycles. So if we know that that's what it does on average, what if you don't want to be average? What can you do to slow that process down while speeding up the cognitive ability and the spiritual ability to higher magnitude levels? Well, this is a alkaline life that we're talking about. This is a life of peace that we're talking about. This is a life of high principles, living in honor of universal laws and very little, if any, transgressions of them. Right. So now what's happening as you're moving on this journey, as you take a step, your steps are on such solid ground that there's almost no way you could stumble or fall. Okay. But the rest of everybody else, they're out here trying to run across lakes that they see little pebbles and shit on. They're trying to see if they could be ninja master in this shit. And they so they're taking their chances. They're rolling the dice every time. But this person who lives this holistic lifestyle, they're constructing a pathway that is solid, that they can never slip or fall on. And if they did slip or fall, it's like, oh shit, fell down.
Right.
Oh man, my ankle it hurts a little bit. And you get up and you just keep walking.
Right.
Well, this other person, they fell in the river. They didn't realize how strong the current was. It carried them about 5 miles down the way. And they don't actually have a map or a compass or anything like that to figure out how to get back to the point that they could that they were able to see at first.
Right.
With their eyeballs. So who are these individuals? These are the individuals who it's a lot of fast food or processed food. You know, they got it out of the freezer, put it in the microwave, boom, boom, got some food. These are the ones who don't sleep hardly ever, video games all night.
And these are still spiritual laws, because what you're putting in is creating the as above. The correspondence is activating the effect. And I would say, just for time's sake, you know, I guess we'll cover the top 3, which was important.
This is the divine paradox, which you just described.
Yeah. So we'll cover the top 3. And I think we can save the rest of the things before. So we're on correspondence. I would like for you to pull back up the correspondence thing if you can, so that we can just get a little bit through that, and then we'll cover the vibrations. And then yeah, man, I think this is part. I knew it was going to be the more, because we really didn't still dive fully all the way into this, which I think is important. So I just want to read a little bit of it, but you can stop right there. So we'll go. Yeah. Okay. So the principle is of universal application and manifestation on various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. So meaning that those 7 planes that Ferdinand was telling you about, which next episode I guess we'll have to definitely get into, this principle is working across all planes, but in secondary to the first principle, which all is mind. But we know mind is made up of different planes, astral bodies, so-called physical worlds. So what we're talking about is working through various planes, because it is a universal law. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most mental instruments. Now listen to the word instruments, by which a man was able to pry aside the obstacles from which hid from view the unknown. Because once again, you can reverse engineer this principle once you understand that the below is a macrocosm of the above. So you might not be understanding what is going on in my head, but
reversing polarity.
There you go. But if you start to analyze, I can't analyze what's going on in my head, but let me just look at my reality, because my reality cannot escape what's going on in my head. It's a law. They're both mutually, directly, always connected across every plane of existence. And let me just keep on reading. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which a man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view of the unknown, It is used even toward aside. It is used even toward aside. Because this is important, because we're all under this veil of ISIS. You know what I mean? Every time we go to sleep, a little bit of it wipes away what we knew just a couple minutes before, and then we're patterned with not forgetting. It is used to even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess may be caught. Just as knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from, this is important, man, these words are so important. It allows man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Study the monad, he understands the arching angles or angel. You know what I mean? So before we get in principle of vibration, my brother, you got any more to add to that paragraph right there about correspondence?
Let's go back for a second.
And how it's, to me, right, and I'll just add it while you're scrolling, is letting you know that the as above below, that they're directly connected. And the as above is going to pertain a level of unknowableness. But if you study what is known enough, you will get this peek behind the orchestrator, the goddess, the hidden face that is actually causality. Because once again, the correspondence, most people know the law of attraction, or they call it cause and effect. But, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago, retrocausality. This is also telling us that it's effect and cause too. It's not just cause and effect. We live under cause and effect, but we also live under effect and cause, which meaning that I might not understand what caused this, but let me study the effect. Let me study the symptom. And if I study the symptom long enough, it will lead me in the spirit of truth to its true causality, and nothing that is knowable, anything that I can physically perceive or see with the senses, will truly stay unknowable, because I will be able to trace the face intelligently with reason, just by knowing this principle that is not only cause and effect, but there is effect and cause. The effect is the below aspect of it, what has already happened. It's okay. They always say to know where you're going, you have to what? Know where you've been. That's effectively saying I can't get to the cause, but if I just study the effect, the similar. Say it again, yes, sir. If I just study the below enough, the history, what has already happened, I can create a simulacrum, meaning I don't even have to have a new idea introduced. I can go off past ideas and then create a new idea without having a new original substance introduced. So this is why the correspondence, not just leaving it as above, so below and walking away, but spending time talking about so below, as above, so we can understand that they're both mutual relationship. Neither one is higher than the other. They're both mutually creating each other, and it's up to you as the alchemist or the magician to say which one that you prefer. And I do think our astrological lines does have an effect, which one we like to play with. I'm more of a lower magic worker. I say 60-40. As we see, I like higher as well. I wouldn't maybe even talk how we talk, but I understand that me working with the forces of the senses is just as powerful as a creation, because I automatically know it's connected to the science of the above. And I've been able to figure out a lot of mysteries just by playing with the so-called lesser magic, because I understood finally that I don't have to just keep saying as above, so below, and keep going to the as above. I can also say, well, so below, as above, and work with the below elements, work with the foods and the fruits, and all these are below magical elements, and I can get the higher causality effect, even if I don't know the higher causality effect, but I can just work with the lower below, and then somehow I will know a higher effect. So I just wanted us to really take time with the correspondence, because I don't think enough people honor the below as above. We know about the cause and effect, the as above, so below, but we don't also know that the effect is also causing the cause too.
So when we think about the principle of correspondence, I want to take it to the zodiac, because this is our strongest science. And it's a science of who we are at the spiritual level.
Mm.
When we start speaking symbolism, we're speaking the language of it.
Mm.
So how are we connected? Let's use the moon just for a quick example. We know that it has a gravitational pull on water, right? And it's at its highest clip of doing that when it's fully illuminated by the sun, right? So it has this connection to us. We're made of water. What else are we made of? Calcium, zinc, magnesium, manganese, copper, silver, gold, and the list goes on. We have all of these different minerals inside of us. But those same minerals are on some of these other planets. Some of these other stars are heavily made up of them. So when a lot of light shines on them and then bounces off of that planet or star and shines into this atmosphere, and that light comes inside of us. It's almost like the equivalent of you cooking something and you put some spice on it. The rays of the sun could be likened to the food that's in that pot or in that pan. And then these planets and these stars could be likened to the spice.
Now you really cooking. Now you want to cook? Okay, let's cook.
This is the principle of correspondence. But it manifests energy within us. So, like, for example, Uranus is the planet of rebellion and revolution and sudden changes and technological advancements, right? And we see this planet work within certain, or not work, but let's say project energy within our atmosphere in certain types of ways, pending what zodiac sign that it's in, right? Well, this is the principle of correspondence manifest. And that planet moving into Aquarius produces a whole lot of rebellion in the humanitarian space. Well, that's that energy, projecting energy directly into us that helps to curb our free will to move in a direction that energy is manifest of. This is the principle of correspondence at one of the highest levels that we could speak about concerning things that you can go outside and see with your eyeballs every day and take a look at the behavior of people to correspond with what you saw.
Man, powerful, man. I want us to move on, but I want to just read this part one more time.
Oh, my bad.
Yes, you are good. And then we'll jump into the third principle. And then, like I said, we're not wrapping up already because we still got to talk about the third principle, but I guess just for time, I told her we was gonna cook. So we only got a chance to go through so far 3 principles, and then you guys have to wait for the other 4 for next episode. But I just want to before we move on, I just want to read this one more time because I feel like it's so important. And then for me, I feel like this passage more so was harping on the below versus the above, because the above and below, most of us know that, but most of us doesn't give enough respect on some Birdman-ish on the below. So I just want to read this part again. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. It is even used tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. So to me, they're letting you know, if you honor the below enough, even though some aspects of the as above is so unknown, but if you get your heads out of the clouds and start to work as man is supposed to with his hands, with his senses, and really do it with due diligence, by that aspect alone, the Akashic will reveal itself to you, and then it doubles back. I'm making the connection to what Ferdinand's always talking about. He basically, but so many words, is telling me that if you just focus on the purity of it, the information will come. To me, this paragraph made manifested. He didn't say go read 1,000 books. He said to cleanse, purify, put the right stuff in your body, and somehow the veil will tear its own self away. And that's because you're working with the below to the above, and you're utilizing the full correspondence, not just the law of attraction in one side of it.
So let me touch that just for a second.
Go ahead, my brother.
So what my brother Ra is saying here is this: when you go down that path of purification in the physical realm, and you're fasting, you're prolonged fasting, you're cleansing your body out, you're reshaping your body, you're becoming younger again, you're cleansing out your digestive tract, you're detoxifying, right? Well, along that pathway, you are automatically rising spiritually.
We're showing it to you right here. He's not, the man isn't lying.
Thank you. And it can work either way. This is what he's been talking about. This is the divine paradox of looking at both sides. This is the thing that has baffled many of our great thinkers.
A lot.
Where they weren't able to look at the both sides, the lower and the higher, the positive and the negative. You know, each of these pieces make the whole. And this is the reason why the zodiac matters so much. Because when we look at the zodiac from a perspective that's outside of the 365-day perspective of what we know of the zodiac, every 30 days, roughly, we have a change in what the zodiac is. Oh, it's Sagittarius season. Oh, it's Capricorn season. Oh, it's this and that season. Well, what about ages? What's that? You know? So when we start looking at all of these different occurrences of this zodiac and how it plays from above down below, and then how we operate from below, and then we influence above.
Yes,
The God and it creates the universe.
The gods is watching, man. And then let me just finish up on this, because this is still, once I don't think no word in this book is wasted. So I don't feel bad by double reading it. Because, you know, I read this book probably like 12, 15 years ago and didn't understand any of it. I was like, what? Now it's like, oh my gosh. So I'm going to keep on reading. It says, just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry, which is lower magic, which is, you might have a knowledge of herbs. You might have a knowledge of foods. You might have a knowledge of fruits. So a mathematician have a knowledge of shapes, right? And then read what it says next. Principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns, the macrocosm now, the things that we can't see, by mastering seemingly lower aspects. It automatically reveals the hidden parts of self that we did not know. This is how they're creating the quantum computer. How are they creating the quantum computer? They're following math, and then they're hitting buttons, and then they have to measure retroactively what happened. How did that happen? What button did we, because they don't know. They're just somehow working with the lower math, geometry, and they're creating this, right? So finishing this up, to measure distant suns and their movements while seated below in his observatory, the lower magic. So a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason and intelligently from the known to the unknown. And we'll finish this up. Studying the monad, he understands the archangel. You get what I'm saying? So this is, to me, that is so much, and such a small paragraph. It's packed so much, and basically understand, the more you know thyself, like the ancients said. I heard this one guy, right? And he was a homeless man, but the man was enlightened, and he came on, he made this statement, and I remember being offended by it. This is when I was still a Christian, right? I thought it was like demonic. And he was like, he came on, he was like, you know, we are gods, and I know everything. We know everything. We know everything there is to know. Nothing you can say that we don't know. Why? Because we started first with knowing ourselves. It took me about 15 years to have the aha to what he was talking about. You know what I mean? And how the understanding of man automatically gives you the understanding of God. We're trying to contemplate, as Christ said, when man is saying, see here and see there. These are false illusionaries if anyone is trying to get you to study any other person other than self. If any other book is making you feel triggered to believe that it is another self or teacher outside of self that is more noble than you, they are misdirecting you, because any wise teacher is only going to redirect you back to yourself, because that's the only person there is to find. And somehow in the knowing of self, on a lower magician, like the book said, studying the stars from his observatory, just by him on his lower self, contemplating on his lower self, he can understand everything under the sun, you know. So I wanted to just touch on that. The next principle, my brother, you can get cooking on that. If you feel like you might want to add something else more, than go ahead. But if not, I guess we can.
Well,
third principle.
You know, when it comes down to correspondence and and those reveals that you're talking about. When a person chooses to
I can't
fast,
see you, my brother.
oh my bad. When a person chooses to fast,
Mm,
especially when it's a prolonged fast, 12 hours in, you're going through growth hormone.
mm,
18 hours in, you benefited from autophagy, and autophagy continues throughout that fast.
mm,
But at a certain point, you're going through a BDNF increase. Well, what is that? That's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and BDNF is like the equivalent of your like the increase of it. It's like the equivalent of your cognitive speed going up thousands of percent. This
right.
is on Google. This is not no like Ferdinand just making up this number. I'm telling you that this is real science. During a fast, your cognitive speed goes through the freaking roof. So
Mm,
whatever you was able to do as far as like your thinking capacity, oh man, you want to write a song and you're already decent at writing music,
mm,
perfect time to write a song. Right? Well, what is this? This is that soul and that spirit kicking in
mm,
because of the lower work,
mm.
the principle of correspondence. As above, so below as above.
It's a fact.
So it works in different ways in nature, and not different ways, it works the exact same way in everything. However, because of the vibratory forces, this is why it might look a little different.
Mm,
This is why a tree and a flower might look different, but they're the same thing.
mm-hmm,
Roots and vegetation.
mm-hmm.
As above, so below. So below as above.
It's a
Right.
fact.
So let's go ahead and move forward into vibration. So vibration. They say when you wield this one, you've wielded a scepter of power.
Mm,
Well, we know that to be true at this point because we're looking at what the Europeans have done with the power of vibration with the radio wave, what they did with television, what was done with media as a whole, right? This is vibration. But vibration is also my hand. Vibration is also this simulcast that is going out right now to Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook at the same time. Right? This vibration can help us to understand when we're sad, and it can help us to understand when we're happy or when we're in love. It can help us to understand when it's a good time to study or when it's a good time to travel or it's a good time to sleep, right? Vibration. We can look at vibration in water. We can look at it in sand.
mm,
We can see vibration in the different temples that have been built all over the earth, the
mm.
cathedrals in Europe. We can see vibration.
Visible sound. Visible. I've been to some of the places in Paris. It looks like visible sound.
There you go. Visible sound. We can see that as well. We can see vibration from the ethers of the fire as the fumes come up.
Mm,
This is all vibration.
mm,
And it's all making one sound, the universe, right?
mm.
So we all need to be thinking about how we play our part within the vibration of this one sound, this one orchestra,
Mm.
this one masterpiece that we are all a part of, and arguably could go as far as saying that we're one of the biggest pieces of creators within this entire universe, no
Right.
matter how many galaxies that it has, no matter how vast that it is, because
Facts.
every single one of those galaxies are within us.
Facts. Yes, and you can't separate us from our birthright. And just so we can stay in the spirit of remembrance is for us to understand is that this third principle also is in a particular immutable order. And the first principle, the second principle, and after you understand correspondence, then that correspondence, the mind creates a correspondence, and then that correspondence creates a vibration, a frequency, and I'll just read from the good book for tonight. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This in principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion, just like Ferdinand was saying. Everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Facts which modern science endorses. Funny, this is modern science, what, 1910 or something, 1901? It's crazy thing. Facts which modern science endorses. But crazy thing, not the same time, the Moorish Temple and Noble Drew Ali was also doing their thing at the same. So it's crazy how much new age this really is. They were spitting this type of information way back then. Facts which modern science endorses, in which each new scientific discovery tends to verify. And yet this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the difference between different manifestations of matter, energy, and mind, and even spirit, results largely from varying rates of vibration. And we'll keep going down from the all, which is spirit, down to, this is important, from the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter. All is in the vibration. Vibration, the higher the vibration, the higher the position and scale, which once again, I just want to regurgitate, higher does not mean better. It's just, it's a rate of frequency that is opposite from certain things that is manifested, that is a lower frequency, but these are all valid forms of expression of creation. You know, in there, it's not even a choice on whether you can choose one, because choosing one creates the other. To choose low, it creates the high. Then that's the principle that we'll cover next week. But to choose one automatically superpositions itself as a super partner. Supersymmetry is shown us in quantum physics that every superposition has to have a super partner. So if you're someone who's been not achieving, there's another superimposed version of you that is an achiever, that you're always directly connected to. If you move your awareness, as we talked about in the first principle, your mind on his mind, you will start to see the correspondence and then thus the vibration into your particular reality. But just to finish up, energy, mind, and even spirit results largely from varying states of vibration. From the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter, all is in the vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position and scale. The vibration of spirit is as such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity. What the hell? That it is practically at rest. I know it's probably gonna say next, but you can scroll up. I just knew it was gonna say, yeah, it's practically at rest. Just as the rapidly moving wheels seem to be motionless. And at the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibrations are so low as it seems at rest. Between these poles, or even death, there's no such thing as death. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions, many parallel worlds. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it wasn't true, I wouldn't tell you so. There are millions upon millions of various degrees of vibrations, from corpuscle and electrons, atoms and molecules, to worlds and universes. Everything is in a vibratory motion. This is also true for the Ferdinand was talking about the planes. This is also true on the planes of energy and force, which are but varying degrees of vibration, and also in mental planes whose states depend upon vibration. So that, once again, mental planes, the universe is mental. So we have to make that connection. Whose states depend upon vibrations, and even on the spiritual planes. As understanding of this principle with the appropriate formulas, it enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibration. This is where it gets funky, as well as those of others.
NLP.
Right. In another varying degree, that even though you appear to seem to be outside of me, Ferdinand, somehow we are one and the same. So this is how we're even creating this accordance, because the more I know myself, the more I see myself outside of self. Now I can have the illusion that you are something other than self, but I know better. I know that you are self, just being projected back to me for purpose, contrast, and sharpening of steel. You know what I'm saying? In a different so-called vessel, or in a slightly different vibratory state, which is a complementary state. So let's just continue. Hermetic students to control their own mental vibration as well as those of others. The masters also apply this principle to conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. He who understands the principle of vibration has, you talked about this earlier, has grasped the scepter of power says one of the old writers. So what do you think of that, my brother?
I think that when we understand vibration, we understand the core of a thing. And when we're thinking about origins, that gives us a lot of power when we're in that space of origins, to understand the true building blocks of something, to understand the real core, and to understand its true purpose. Very similar to a talisman. When you look at a talisman and how it's created, it's often said by the masters of masters that a talisman needs to be created with a person being in the right vibration, in a vibration of love, in a vibration of happiness, in a vibration of giving, right? Because if that talisman is created with a vibration that is lesser, not maybe not lesser, but let's say lesser amount of frequency in that vibration. Now what we've created is a talisman that can be lewd or harm or hurt, right? So I'll give you an example. What's a talisman? Chevy Tahoe, um, baby oil, candles, clothes, this computer, cell phone, those glasses you're wearing, the hat I have on. These are all talismans, right? And a lot of the times when we don't buy stuff off of Amazon, we focus on the vibration of the people that are around us who are creating certain things, and then we may purchase from them if we really rock with them, right? But it's not us necessarily rocking with them; it's us rocking with their vibration, right? So but let me go back to what you read, though, right? So the masters also apply this principle to the conquering of natural phenomena. Think about that. Natural phenomena. Now we're talking about X-Men and DC Comics. Now we're talking about superheroes here. Okay, I have a teacher. I have a teacher who he's my current mentor, who I have a lot of respect for. And one of the things that he said to me is at the original Olympics, nobody touched anything. Think about that. It was like the telepathic Olympics. They moved everything with their mind. They threw the spear with their mind. They shot the bow with their mind. Now this is, like I said, this is what I was told. This is from lip to ear, but this is from somebody who I really respect. And if anybody out there, who's listening, thinks that I'm kind of intelligent, if I pulled this guy on the line, me and Rob would be sitting here like we were sitting at the feet of a master right now, listening to this dude, and we would be super happy to do it, taking notes and everything.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the level that this guy is at. So when he told me that, I wasn't able to go and verify it right now just yet.
Who verified Jesus allegories? The parables to get across the message.
But when we think about vibration, right? When we think about the masters being able to use their vibratory force, obviously to control themselves, but to control others if they so chose. We're doing that today. Nabisco is doing that right now. Walmart is doing that right now. Macy's is doing that right now.
Psyops.
We're seeing it on a regular basis. Time magazine doesn't even hardly print magazines that much anymore. I mean, they still do, but it's not as much as they did at one time. And they're still doing that, right? So these forces are still being used to this day. The bulk of us just don't realize it because these individuals' efforts in using vibration is so high level at this point that you can't even recognize it because it's touching your emotions so well.
Right.
They're creating something that is congruent or correspondent to the emotions in a way where it syncs, like it fits right in like a glove and leads them right off of their path. into a vibration that they're not prepared for, and they can easily be ate up by some animals that's out there in that area of the forest.
Nah,
And we
nah,
see this happening. I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's a Snapple fact, man. And just to, go back to the good word, where it talks about the masters also apply this principle to conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. Because the reason why this is so powerful, especially when you keep the first three laws in mind, you understand, okay, first, all is mind. Then there's a certain correspondence to the mind and what is made visible. And what is made visible is also corresponding to the mind. And then we understand, now we keep that into our mental paradigm. Then we add the third aspect is that what is being seen is somehow vibrating across all planes, even in the mind. The first principle is vibrating through all planes. So that means that when we come across natural phenomena, maybe it's even, some bad news, bad financial news, that we understand at its core, it's not actually the thing in the event, it's a certain vibration. It's a certain frequency that we are being confronted with, which is triggering certain emotions, energy in motion, which is vibrations within inside of us. But being though that we know the first three laws, and we also know that effect and cause, we know that we don't have to be triggered by the so-called phenomena that is actually that we're witnessing, and that we actually have some level, since we have access to the mental plane, to reverse the vibratory frequency or transmute the vibratory frequency, not even of a situation, but even of another's mind. To what limit this power is, it seems not to be any, but your acceptance and use of these principles. So the principle of vibration is so important because it understands that everything that we come across in the all of the mind has a certain frequency signature to that. And if we can use the different poles to play with the different frequency, we can take more lighter forms and transform them into more grosser forms, which the grosser is just so-called physical reality. So we're trying to take, if I have a version of myself, right, that is different from what the phenomena of life has presented, I can hold these things in the imagination mind, because when I hold them, they're producing a vibratory frequency and pattern. And if I hold them to such a degree, these things could collapse and override. Not can. This is not can we're talking about. So let me refine my language. These things will override and revise the current vibrational signature that first presented ourselves, if we can get our minds trained in the proper hermetic order. So when we're being confronted with things, we're not being confronted with their appearances, but we're being confronted with the principles of truth for what they truly are. Because once we understand these 7 hermetic principles, as Ferdinand said earlier too, there is nothing that you will come across in this so-called plane that you will not be able to subscribe or associate to one of the principles. This is why, if not all, this is why the temples completely fly open. This is why they make such braggadocious, audacious claims, such as this in this book, because it's really written in the spirit of truth. And if you can understand these Stothic, I just made that term up, these Stothic teachings, these your favorite teacher that you told me, Hermes Trismegistus teaching, Tahuti teachings, and really not just read them as a fun play, as one like to do the Bible, but really take them at face value for what they're actually trying to communicate. And mind you, this is just the intro of the book that's giving you a little paragraph. They spend the next 100 pages going back into the individualistic principles and giving you all these different operandums of Mirandas of operation to really get you to understand how really real that they're talking about. So when people are talking about law of attraction, that is a lazy law compared to the principles that we're showing you. You know what I mean? Because the law of attraction doesn't fully give you the full breakdown on each level what you should be doing. And then another thing that I'm adding to this as well, which is not talked about a lot, is that these 7 hermetic principles are also connected to the chakra system within the body, with the mind starting at the crown chakra, and then the correspondence starting here, and then the speaking and the voice here. So that this is a higher, I would not be on here just playing around. You know what I'm saying? This is obviously, we're being called to do this. This is under even though I love to troll and have fun, it's part of my nature. You know what I mean? And this is maybe why people like chopping it up and learning when I do, you know, like my different web design class, because I make it fun. You know what I mean? But I don't want to allow the funness to override the severity of the information that we're trying to impress upon you and ourselves, because through teaching, we are also learning. I've picked up jewels that I did not have before we started this conference, trying to help y'all. I'm helping myself. This is why it's so much fun, because it's a recursive loop. But to understand that when you're coming across certain situations, your bank account low, your bank account high, or these, you know, even currency, these is vibratory frequencies, right? And we can't expect the condition to change without using the principles. We can't expect the vibratory, the grosser frequency to be anything other. When we come across these grosser frequencies, this is the below to the as above that's just revealing you the face of Isis on what you're really thinking that you might have been unaware of if you don't prefer that vibratory frequency that you're actually going through. It is here to remind you that you don't have to settle, because this situation is only occurring because it's responding, whether you know it or not, to some sort of resonance that you're creating within the God body. And our job is to be aware of it and activate these three principles to then thus not work with the grosser, say, oh, I'm going to throw this over there, but to get into that mental state and to entangle with realities that has a different vibratory sequence or frequency than the phenomena that you're currently experiencing. And if I'm lying, brother, stop me at any time. You know what I mean? But these are things, the reason why the vibration is so important, and they're letting you know, and then they're also letting you know everything you're seeing is actually source, but it's your perspective on it that's allowing you, and your perspective is frequency that's getting you to see it other than truth. It's getting you to see it in the way that you might not prefer, but that's only because you might have been unconsciously resonating as a frequency, and the phenomena confronted you not to react and trigger you in a negative way, but to show you your Isis, to show you your mind, and for you to retrace your steps, and for you to honor the law and say, hey, if this thing is somehow in my vibratory frequencies, let me just do an inventory check. Now, I will say this, because there's many planes of causality. You might be Job, which Job was being bared witness to an effect that he did not start the causality to. The causality started in another plane. This is why he was going back and forth with God. But many of us are not Job. Many of us are being undone by our own hands. And there is some sort of frequency that we are emitting unconscious to ourselves, and it's confronting us in a grosser form that we call physical in this mind matrix. And this is for me too, because once again, we all fall short of the glory of God. So don't let me sit up here like a preacher. I'm just in the spirit of the messenger delivering the information with the energy, but I fall victim to the same things that I'm telling you too. I don't want to separate myself from this, but it's here to show us our vibratory frequency, then allow us the option of whether we want to continue down this frequent path, or do we want to honor the principles and then create a new vibratory signature. And since we walk by faith and not by sight, we use sight to diagnose. You know what I mean? We use symptoms to diagnose, but then we go to the true source, which is the first principle. And then we rearrange it. As we talked about, me and Ferdinand talked about, when we came across this information and somehow we were one way, we got in contact with information. Information is nothing but inner formation. Inner formation is certain things that you come across and it changes your inner form. A change of inner form is a change of reality, is a change of frequency, is a change of vibration. You know what I mean? So this is what these three principles, in my interpretation, that I'm trying to, hopefully it resonates with the audience and resonates with me and Ferdinand, that is trying to show us. And this book is really a super secret occulted magic book to allow you to break out of the constraints on what you were taught this world is and how this world works. You know what I mean? Versus the truth on how it really, really works. So just to say all that and kind of encapsulate it into something.
That was a simulacrum simulation.
What you have your mind on is important, because what you have your mind on will produce a resonance, and the resonance will collapse itself into a so-called grosser form. The grosser form is what we know as the physical phenomena of life, and you cannot separate the two. So even if you don't know what's going on in your mind, just analyze your phenomena of life, and it will reveal to you the mind frequency that you're vibrating at. Then we have free will to not judge it. It's when we judge it and we have shame and we hold on to it instead of just letting go and let God, and then we allow now we're confronted with the truth. Oh, the truth sets us free. The truth is that This don't though. Oh, it's no money. I got bad money has. I'm not saving. I'm spending. I got all these accounts. You know what I mean? And then you're able to make a so-called adjustment, and then it produces a new effect or whatever it is. I'm trying to apply it, and what most people, I know most people, listen to things. They learn these things and think about money, which is nothing wrong because these things. The fact that the internet bill is paid, your internet bill is paid, is allowing us to even have. So it is important to understand the esoterics as it relates to the currency. You know what I mean? In the bank and everything else. But that's kind of how I understand, the vibration. And even though it might seem like these things are situation outside of control, or it might seem that even people in your life are doing things outside of your control, somehow these people are still vibrating and responding to your own frequency. And a lot of times how you self-conceptualize yourself, everyone else will honor that self-conception of you and treat you as such. And then you start to see, when you start to so-called raise your esteem of self, you know what I mean? You start to move in a spirit, as Ferdinand talks about, of righteousness. And all of a sudden people have different levels of respect for you before they had none. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my 8 cents on the vibration. And
I appreciate that. I think that was massively helpful. He was definitely cooking. He was breaking down information. I'm like, oh, we're going in.
Man, I be having to watch it back. I told you, I know how it is, man. The further I just kind of just lose myself in it and let source just do its thing. And I tell people all the time, before, when I was younger and you want validation, you wearing it, but I'll let people know, like, man, much is impressed. I'm just as impressed as most people are. A lot of times I'm a bystander listening to the words live as they come out, and I'm like, whoa, this is so. The fact that it impresses me, that's how I know it's not coming from me, because I shouldn't be impressed by my own words. You know what I mean? It's something other than self that say, hey, little Nick, sit aside for a second so we can get the people the inner formation. Exactly.
Conscious, subconscious, superconscious.
There you go. So I'm conscious of what's happening, but there is a super conscious. But me and the Father and me the same, but the Father is greater than I. I understand Christ when he was trying to tell you that. Listen, I'm God, right? Because I understand it, but somehow it's a greater I that even I can't even fully.
Some people this, right? Some people this, right? When we build, what part of mind builds?
Break it down for me.
Subconscious. So when we bring a thought in, right, especially in repetition, and then we emotionalize that thought with any type of desire connected to that thought, the subconscious receives information or receives an order that it's got to go ahead and build physical reality. Sometimes that order might be as much as sometimes it might just be that. Sometimes it might be a blinking of the eyes. Sometimes it might be purchasing a house. Sometimes it could be anything, right? But these things happen as a result of the subconscious being properly charged and implanted with an idea.
Right.
Okay. So how does the superconscious work in that? So we're building right now. Okay? So we're using the subconscious. We're consciously here. We're consciously making the decision to have this conversation, to talk about these topics, and to allow ourselves to be the vessel of truth. Okay. So this is the conscious will working, while the subconscious is being impregnated with certain types of emotions, of happiness, of delight, of love, of compassion and empathy, of truth, right? And then the superconscious is throwing in all kinds of ammo. Keep going. Keep shooting.
Right.
Keep putting them down. The ancestors like, listen, we got you. You need grenades? Go.
And then the conscious, when his ego gets out of control, he thinks he's all three, not understanding that the conscious is the observer of what the parents are making made manifest, and he's the receiver without effort of what his parents are co-creating for him. And then he has the ability to either show gratitude, which then has an effect, or not show gratitude, which then has an effect. of what's being presented for him, and it's through his level. I'm just freestyling this. It's through his level of gratitude that lets the superconscious and subconscious know what they'll decide to either give to you or take away. Because to those who have, it is given; to those who have not, it is taken away.
I give you one. So I think a good metaphor for this would be the conscious mind builds the studio, makes sure that the walls are soundproof, gets all the engineering boards and the microphones and everything set up, and then invites the ancestors in to give a word.
There you go. There you go. Another great analogy.
So keep this right with vibration, right? We got this sentence here that I wanted to point out to everybody. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions of varying degrees of vibration. So let's look at a practical example of that sentence. A practical example of that sentence is the television and the radio. When we're riding in the car, you know, you got 93.1, 93.3, 93.5, 93.7, 93.9, and so on and so on, right? But with the right type of radio, you got 93.0000. You see what I'm saying? All kinds of varying degrees, and we never left 93 yet.
And it's one signal, but with this filter could break the one signal down to many micro signals of awareness.
So the human spirit, thank you, appreciate it. The human spirit can be likened to 93. And then there's point, and then you got millions of numbers right there on the other side of the 93.
I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be astronaut. I want to be it. I want to be that. I want to be, yep. Oh, I am not that. I am not this. I am not that. There you go.
Or let's even get more accurate. Instead of saying 93, let's say 432 point.
That's a fact.
432. That's that vibrational frequency.
There you go. Yes, sir.
But yeah, so when we think about this metaphor, now let's bring it back to man, spirit, human, right? Let's bring it back to man. If that's how the radio works, and your power is greater than what the radio can do, you can reach further. The radio can only reach across hundreds of miles, maybe. Sometimes you got a few that might reach around thousands.
Right.
Maybe there's a few that reach all the way across the earth through various types of amplification. But without Cerebro, we can go to beyond the edge of the universe. This is vibration. Pending how a person chooses to vibrate is going to determine in their mind space what they reveal to themselves.
Correspondence. See, look, once you get into the weeds of it, you can't not use the principles. The principles reveal, it really does reveal all. You know what I'm saying? It really
and this is the reason why I try to take people down a path of fasting and detoxification, because these are really the easiest, but also the most sustainable ways to take a person into a higher vibratory space, a higher frequency, right? But it requires a lot of sacrifice, which is its own vibration, right? So these vibrations, when we think of the principle of vibration, let's go back to the studio, right? Let's think of ourselves as Dr. Dre's studio, right? The soundboard, all the speakers, everything, all the dope equipment, all the Apple equipment, everything, right?
Right.
Then the booth, and the booth's got the best in there, everything, right? And there's Tupac in there, right? But keep in mind that person is Tupac. They are the soundboard. They are the speakers. They are the microphone. They are Dr. Dre, right? So what are they doing? They're sliding and tuning, right? So they're tweaking different things. And as they turn this knob, this slider over here kind of slides a little bit. So they got to come over here and they got to tweak that one. When they tweak that one, this one over here moves. So now they got to tweak this one, right? And then when this one is tweaked, that one and that one, they both move. So now you got to keep doing all this. And then once you got everything right, you tell Tupac to go ahead and give a melody. This is vibration. But each of these elements, each of those sliders and tuners, those are love. That's harmony. This one's balance. This one's hate. This one over here is happiness. This one over here is sadness, right? These different sliders and tuners are our emotions. They are principles. They are virtues. And as we slide and tune them, and then when we feel like it's just right, we go ahead and give the melody through the microphone. And what that does, because what that melody is thought. That melody is thought. So pending if it's a F sharp, or if it's an A, or if it's a B, depending what type of note this is, it's going to touch different areas around the universe. It's going to touch various dimensions and realms on various levels of existence.
That's a fact. All from lower magic, because even the planets are attached to certain sounds and everything in the universe, and every frequency that we see without can be produced from here, right in this plane of existence of the so-called physical or lower. This is why, once again, I don't disregard this experience. I'm not trying to escape. I'm not trying to figure out my career. I'm not trying to, because I realize that man is really magnificent, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Source didn't make no mistakes when he created man. And not to jump around, but the Christian Bible and even the Holy Quran, as you talked about, they all talked about so-called maybe disembodied spirits, jinns or angels or other people that were maybe preceded or were created that had a level of disdain or jealousy or lack of understanding. Out of all his magnificent creations, the jinn said, "You made man from dust, but you made us from smokeless fire. What the fuck is going on?" Allah, like what you know what I'm saying? But it was a certain value or divine spark that was imbued upon man, that from what it appears, according to studying some of these scriptures, that was not imbued upon all the vast many creations that do exist. There is something uniquely special about man that other beings that might even be called higher. You take the angels, they say the angels don't have the ability to free will, which meaning that they might be a slave to only goodwill. Well, that makes us better than them, because we ate from the tree of truth and false truth. So we have the ability to perpetrate false truth or real truth, with some other beings don't have these abilities. You know what I mean? So I'm a proponent when they say peace to the gods on earth, that I really mean it. And I'm not trying to create myself into some sort of formless white man in the sky. I love being Ra motherfucking Thrava, his God body. And I'm just looking to enhance what I currently have to become even more aware of God body. So I'm not looking for a motherfucker to come out the sky or someone to save me, or outside teacher. If I do have an outside teacher, he best be reminding me of me and myself through his teachings, and not to deify or to grace. This is why I love my uncle, because he was always firm, on anytime it appears that I was talking too fond of an external source. He always made sure to draw, and not many people are willing to do that, even with himself. When I tried to pedestalize, he doesn't lie, even to him. You know what I mean?
You back.
Yeah, he always does. You know what I mean? And now, I'm able to, he did that for at least 7-8 years. Now I'm able to finally catch more of his drift. And even sometimes I would use certain language just for the lack of me wanting to be explicit. He still would correct me. Of course, nope. Not you know what I mean? No, I don't. There ain't no mystery God, nephew. Allah, arm, leg, arm. So anytime I was trying to give credence or credits to any other creator other than man being, so yes, there might be other beings that have other assets or powers that we don't have, but does not mean he is greater than you. You are the centerpiece, the greatest, especially when it comes to earth. So you so-called aliens are coming down. I mean, God gave us dominion of this plane, and we named everything within it, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't really care what planet or interdimensional planet you coming from. You come from me, you're gonna have some smoke in the city, especially understanding these Kabbalic laws that we have access to, in the understanding that even if things are appearing as flesh, a being You know, you're nothing but a frequency. And it says that I have the ability to even control your frequency if I so believe it. Now, if you present yourself in a fashion that trick bags me out of my identity, which certain things happen, which means that you come across something that has you so in awe, you're so focused on its amazingness, you forget who you are. Therefore, you surrender your power to this thing that's making you yield unto it. And I try to, when I catch myself, just bring it back in, because I know that it only takes a moment of forgetfulness to put yourself in a subordinate position, and now you are now subjected to the thing that is influencing you in its vibratory a frequency, which then causes sequences in your life. So some people, like one dude told me, "Oh, you got the main character syndrome." I just laughed at it because it's like I understand how I present it to the uninitiate or to someone who's it seems like abrasive because it's all about this God of all and this thing. But I say, listen, I came here to understand the all, but I'm here to live an I experience. Let's not fucking forget it. And I'm here to know my I so much, because guess what? If I can't see my I, that means I can't appreciate you, Ferdinand, because I'm like, there's no difference between, no, there is difference between us. I'm motherfucking Ra. He's Ferdinand as he should be, which I like. I'm able to see the contrast, to have a great experience, to even call you a friend. If I was more somebody spiritual, I wouldn't be able to call you friend. Like, no, you're not a friend. You're me. No, I'm here to honor the ego, but give it a level of raising, to not fall for reptilian reptile brain thing. But I'm not here to squash it or to get rid of Eckhart Tolle. You have to get rid. No. I love my I experience, you know, and I'm not ready to go back to the experience of not knowing separation. I go and I sit with it for moments throughout my day so I can balance myself, but then I come back to the motherfucking matrix, baby. Like you see, like I said, in this other realm, bro, they don't have here. I'm a single man, so don't let me debauchery. But in other realms, you can't smack ass and do all. You can't do these things. They don't even exist. So it's so many. Like the girl in the red dress. I like the girl in the red dress in the Matrix. So why would I want to go to another form of these? Now I do. I've experimented with psychedelics and things, so I understand how these things are, and they are great. When I
steak.
Say it again.
I said, hopefully you didn't eat the steak.
But if I did, it was to be negotiated on my own terms. But the one thing that I won't do that Cypher did, Cypher said, oh, and I don't want to remember anything. See, I wouldn't do that. I would say, okay, this is what I want. This is my thing, but still keep me in the spirit of remembrance, just in case I want to be something else other than what. But absolutely, Matrix, I'm not the Neo that's trying to escape. He keeps meeting the architect. Architect telling you keep doing the same thing. You come, I destroy Zion, it rebuilds it. I'm not interested in that. I used to be interested in that, but now I know it's a trap, because you cannot escape the unescapable. We're in it. The only thing you can do, which my favorite characters are Cypher and the Moravian in the Matrix, not me, not the regular. You know what I'm saying? Because these are people who had a level and then they took back control. The Moravian is definitely one of my favorite characters. If you remember the restaurant scene real quick, when Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus all came to him, and he asked them, "Why are you here?" And Morpheus said, "You know why we're here." He said, "Yes, but do you?" And they're like, he's like, "You're here because someone told you to come here." You know what I mean? And you don't even have a why you're here. So she said, "So since you don't have a why, you don't have power." And I was like, what? You know what I mean? And then Morpheus is trying to tell him free will choice. He's like, there is no choice. There's only cause, effect, and cause, in your understanding or non-understanding of it. And that's how I am, especially when I read these principles, that there isn't no, and this is what the Kabbalah does talk about in it, that there is no empirical truth. Somehow we're in a paradoxical reality, which each individual truth is the truth. You know what I mean? So if you have a truth that there is something that needs to be escaped, the projection creates natural phenomena that needs to be escaped. If you're under the thing that it doesn't need, it just needs to be surrendered to. The control is in the submission, is in the surrender. You know what I mean? In my guesstimation, you're able to take control by not needing to have control, because you understand that it's already in control. That's where I'm at now. You know what I mean? So whether the things that I aspire to manifest or not, they don't qualify whether I am not in my God body or not in my God body, because I understand that anytime I put myself in a position that I need to be other than self to recognize my divinity, I'm somehow, I lost my way somehow. I've been tricked back by the Matrix that I'm not good enough as is, and this next version of Ra is really the one. And yes, I play that game, but I don't allow myself to be seduced by the truth of whether that is the empirical truth. It is a truth, because I do desire to be other states, but I don't allow these states to trick bag me out of my knowledge of self that I am already and always have been. And I see that's the challenge that I come across of people in our lane that they struggle with me against, because they're so obsessed with being this thing to get closer to a thing. And I'm telling them, I'm not into all that. I already am that thing that you're seeking. I don't seek. I'm here just to play within the play. And I have preferences. There's certain things that you might call low frequency. I might just say, you know what, whatever it is, I'm not going to judge it the same way. I just know I don't prefer it. So I'm just going to push that over here. And I'm going to go more in things I do prefer, which you might call higher frequency. Okay, you get caught up in these labels. You know what I mean? I'm just like what I prefer, what I don't prefer. And I understand that for whatever, I don't know, for whatever reason, whatever this experience that I'm going through, there is no end, because I will always be aware of being aware of something. And I'm subscribing to the notion that man has no creator, that the same Alpha Omega that created us, we are an embodiment. So somehow man always existed without a creator, which is the simulacrum. You know what I mean? And somehow the paradox is he can see something that looks like creation, but when you peek further enough, the thing said, hey, I exist in your mind, so you really created me. But then you say, who came first, the chicken or the egg? And it tells you there was no first. We just always been. And then you're just like, what? But then you move what I've done past the need for that. I still like talking about the subjects as we're doing now, but it's because it brings me joy. It brings me fun. It brings me fun to, go through these paths of so-called self-discovery while still knowing I've already discovered self. You know what I mean? Yeah, which it irritates some people, which is fun because I realize, right, that there's parts of me that enjoys being a troll. So I have to have people that, like you enjoy being a troll because you wouldn't post the things that you would post. So these are valid forms of creation that
I don't necessarily enjoy being a troll. I have the right sauce to approach conversations that most other people won't approach. I don't have the level of humor that Dave Chappelle has, but I have the kind of balls that Dave Chappelle has to approach the topics that he approaches. Well, I can approach those kind of topics as well, and then get up and sleep tonight like a baby, get up tomorrow and post a bunch of stuff that's funny. Then get up the next day and post something else again.
And to me, I've been thinking about what is that, for the lack of a better word, I say troll, but there's something with that, because most people don't want the smoke, as they say, or the confrontation or the conflict. So the fact that you're willing to post means that you've already made amends with the ends before you even did the beginning. And you've already made, even when you probably smile like, this is gonna ruffle some feathers. And most people just don't want the ruffling. So to me, I love people who show that capacity, because it allows me to show that capacity more, because once again, just being vulnerable in my humanness is that sometimes I don't say the things that I truly want to say, because I'm like, not that I care that it's going to ruffle feathers, but I don't be in the mood to even feel like the backlash that the feather ruffling is going to be. So this is why sometimes, and a lot of times, I accept the identity of the troll, because then the troll doesn't care. He almost is inviting it because he needs something throughout his day to someone to get triggered, so that I'm not taking the other person over there typing away. I'm doing the same thing, but laughing, enjoying it. And I realized that, like, yo, this is me once again. It's about
them exposing themselves, and that's funny to watch in itself.
And it's funny to watch myself, and it's fully accepting yourself as a light and dark being. You know what I mean? That at times chaos is somehow entertaining for me. You know what I mean? And it's just recognizing that. So I'm not
the red dress.
Yes, and I'm not the being that the Eckhart Tolle is trying to love. Like, no, I like a little bit of ratchetness in my shit too. You know what I mean? And now I know that doesn't mean that I'm being less than honorable. That's me accepting the fulltality. Now, another person might say they don't. All right, that's you accepting your I like making up words. Fulltality of you, but don't project that you're more holier than thou, because the way I accept mine is different from how you accept yours, my brother. You know what I mean?
I think it honestly comes down to spiritual destiny, right? So like some people's spiritual destiny may be to walk those paths. you know, to see some, you know, some twerking 2 or 3 times a week. You know?
Happily
So, it could be, you know, and that will be hard to say what it is, because the thing about it is everybody's path should be slightly different.
Mm.
There should be certain alignments, like how we eat, what we drink every day. Everybody should be drinking water every day. Everybody.
Right.
Um, everybody should be eating, you know, vegetables and fruits and stuff like that.
Facts.
Well, these are ways we should be aligned, but not everybody should be doing the same things every day. Some people should be carpenters. Other people should be water purifiers. Other people should be fucking airline pilots and stuff, you know. So that takes us down different paths.
Right.
But if we're aligned properly in these other spaces, in what we believe family to be, um, how we eat, how we consume, and we would a lot would change, because we would be one vibration. We would be the magnitude of unity.
Right.
And I got so much more that I want to say, but I gotta close this out because I told my wife I would go massage her feet tonight. we just hit 3 hours, so I appreciate you, Rob. I honestly want, you know, you already know we always usually do our after talk.
After talk, yeah.
I can't even do that after talk tonight.
Uh-oh.
Like my son, he just came in and ran in the bathroom. Right. So yeah, man, it's going down. So yeah, man, I appreciate the talk.
Great build, man, as always.
Yeah, great build.
Yes,
but I'm gonna go ahead and chop and climb, get up out of here. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody who listened to the episode. We're coming back with the next episode to finish out the 7 Hermetic principles. Appreciate y'all. Peace, and expose your gift.